Sim racing is a proving ground. That much is clear. Over the past year, SRO globally has built a competitive esports empire. And now with manufacturer involvement, Honda Performance Development is using Assetto Corsa Competizione to select drivers for their factory Acura NSX team in SRO Esports in 2021. Drivers have been selected based on their qualifying pace and now stand one final test, racecraft and car control in a 45-minute sprint race. 3 regions will hold their contests with a field of Acura NSX GT3 Evos, and it all kicks off with Asia now. Welcome to SRO Esports. My name's Kyle Heyer, joined by Robbie Montanola this morning. Welcome everybody to a qualifying race of sorts, a 45-minute sprint with 9 drivers, some of the best in SRO Esports Asia. And Robbie, really excited to get this underway. We've got 3 regions to contest, first Asia, then Europe, and then North America. It all comes up here shortly, but excited to be here and excited to see some really solid racing today. But we're not here just looking for a winner. We're evaluating the drivers based on a number of factors.
Yeah, Kyle, thanks for having me, and we're definitely excited to kick off this partnership with Honda Performance Development, HPD JAS Motorsports, and really take a look at these sim racers and see how we can put them into the competitive arena that SRO has built up over the past few years. These drivers will earn a spot on the HPD JAS Esports Pro Team and drive in the GT World Challenge esports competitions in Asia, Europe, and America. So it's really exciting to be here. Paul Ricard is a great track to evaluate these drivers' skills, and we look forward to seeing how they fare today.
And Paul Ricard being a test track of sorts is actually a pretty good place to put drivers to the test. There's a lot of paved runoff here, a lot of opportunity to run wide, but today the goal is to stay between the white lines and stay ahead of the pack, and also evaluate racecraft and passing ability and that sort of thing. So we're going to head down to the racetrack here and get qualifying coverage underway. Already been out there for a few minutes. At the top of the board, Mia Rose, who we've seen before in SRO Esports competition, right now in first. Ilhamu Karim Shakil in second in the number 6 car. Again, all of these machines are Acura NSX GT3 Evos, twin turbocharged V6 power plants, mid-engine design. And Robbie, these cars are spectacular. There's a handful of them that have competed in SRO America in GT World Challenge, and you know, they're a really cool platform, and it's going to be pretty cool to see an entire field of them, especially when we get to some of the larger fields later today.
Yeah, the whole part of this competition is really to find the drivers that can best suit the Acura NSX GT3 Evo. We know what they can do in real life, and we're here to put together a pro team to be able to showcase what it could do in the virtual world. So it's exciting to see all these drivers take part in today's race, all driving the same machinery. So like you said earlier, it's down to their skill, their pace, their talent, and we just want to see how they can compete against each other and evaluate their performance.
And Raditya Hendarmo has gone second quick in the number 2 car with a time of a 1:54.897. Just about 0.3 off of Mia Rose's best time, a 1:54.516. There's a car off course there at the exit of one of the corners, and we're going to have a look here at the track guide and sort of get an idea here of what some of the corners here at Circuit Paul Ricard are. Le Castellet, France, 5.79 kilometers. We were just looking at turn number 10, and Robbie, here's a look at the track. Very flat around here. Turns 1 and 2, a left-right combination chicane, then a run down to turn 3 and turn 4. Virage de la Sainte-Baume down there at the far end of the racetrack. Exiting turn number 7, a crucial corner to carry that speed through the end of sector 2 and into that final sector. That turn 10 is almost flat out, just a lift and a quick jump on the brakes, maybe a downshift into turns 11, 12, and 13, which will lead you into the final chicane, 14 and 15. But that long straightaway is a topic of discussion. Slipstream and carrying almost 180 miles an hour into that turn 10.
Yeah, it really breaks up your rhythm at this at a circuit like this as well. So, you know, that long straight, you're just sitting there, you know, you could probably, if you had coffee in the car, just take a few sips of coffee on your way into turn 10. And then once you get through turn 10, track limits becomes a huge factor, because you're just trying to carry as much speed as possible through that right-hand sweeper there, and make sure you don't hit the anti-cut curbs there, and so it'll be interesting to see how people play out.
And you can see here all the blue lines around the circuit, Paul Ricard. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is a test track. Now, one of the interesting things about Paul Ricard is, yes, all the pavement is there for runoff room, but it's actually very, very rough pavement on purpose to sort of add extra grip and also destroy tires. So there's not really much advantage to running wide here, but in some of the corners like we're about to see in turn number 10, we're going to watch Mia Rose here. As Mia exits turn 10, you're going to see on driver's left a handful of bollards, sort of some don't cut signs right there. There they are, 1, 2, 3. So you got to stay within those signs. If you run out wide, you'll end up getting a couple opportunities to do that by mistake. But once you do that, you're going to get yourself a penalty. So you got to stay within the lines as much as possible. And that is probably the corner that will see that the most. But drivers are, again, you're evaluating not only racecraft, Robbie, but using the racetrack. So you don't want to be afraid of going up to the limit. You want to get to the limit and stay there, and that's probably what's going to make you fast around here today.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we want to see the driver's aggressiveness, but we also want to see their constraint in certain racing situations, and just understand how they strategize around what they want to do in this race. If they can come away with the win, awesome, but more so we just want to take a look at how they're going to perform under pressure, and do they make strong decisions while behind the wheel.
There is Sean Madison, who just gone second quick, a 154.666. That's just over a tenth off of Mia Rose right now. Madison in the number 3 car. Tabargas Farhan in third in the number 4 car. So a couple have jumped in front of Hendarmo and Shaquille in the late stages of qualifying here. About 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. You'll get to start a qualifying lap as long as that timer doesn't read 0. You can start a lap as soon as that timer ticks down. Checkered flag will fly, and you can finish your flying lap. Farhan on another flying lap by the looks of it, was on an out lap last time by. Yugo Osaki in the number 8 car, a bright yellow livery, looks good on this machine. Down into turn number 1, looks like he's sharing a livery with one of the other cars. I believe that's Ben Ho. There he is in the number 9. And Ben Ho just about 2 seconds off of the quickest out there on the racetrack. So would like a little bit more pace here, and he'll get one more chance to lay down a time.
Yeah, it's awesome to see some of these liveries that obviously are run in the real world. So this Up Garage livery was run at the Suzuka 10 Hour in our Intercontinental GT Challenge weekend. And so it's cool to drive the real race cars just like they were out on the real racetrack.
So working his way onto the back straightaway again. Mia Rose still the quickest. And maybe this is no surprise, Robbie. We've seen Mia in the SRO America Esports competition last season for the Jean Lacey Esports Academy team in the GT4 class of the series that we did over the winter and into the early spring. And Mia was by far the most dominant, and now changing cars from the GT4 into the GT3, bit of a change in horsepower and weight, and most significantly in the downforce area with this GT3 Evo Acura NSX. So I think Mia's going to transition very nicely into this, and at this level of competition, you've probably driven a whole lot of things in the esports world, and this shouldn't be much of an adjustment for Mia.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mia will tend to this NSX very well. She's been racing in a variety of different cars. I've seen her in the McLaren in a few different leagues as well. So I think she's definitely well suited to the mid-engine rear-wheel drive platform. And as we can see her as she's going down the back straight, I think she'll fare well. And she did great in our second season of GT World Challenge America Esports competition, and we definitely would usually see her towards the top of any of the timesheets that we've seen her race in the past, and we'll see how she does here today.
Well, qualifying is now checkered, so drivers will be allowed to complete flying laps. Sean Madison was able to get even closer, only 63 thousandths of a second off of Mia Rose, but close but no cigar. Mia Rose off track, goes for a slide in turn number 10. Tabargas Farhan also off track. Here's Hendarmo also pulling off track, and a handful of others trying to finish. Yugo Osaki, one of those drivers, in the number 8 down in 6th. One driver in the green right now is Sergei Mironenko in the number 5, kind of a bright teal car, easy to spot from a distance, that's for sure. Running in 7th right now with a 155.743. It's about a 2 3/10 off of the pole, but he's up half a second on his best lap.
Yeah, and if you guys look at the timing screen, so the car numbers actually reflect the qualifying position that they were in the timesheets. So Mia Rose being the fastest during our qualifying stints, has the number 1. Sean Madison with the number 3. So just as a heads up, that's a good way to see how they fared in our qualifying stint over the past week.
So kind of a seeding of sorts, and so far it seems like it's been fairly accurate. Hendarmo down the order a little bit farther than maybe we would expect. Of course, we've got 2 more regions coming up in just a little while. We've got the SRO Europe region coming up at the top of the hour. Then following that will be the SRO America, the North American contest to finish off the day. And the drivers will be evaluated and then be selected based on their performances in not only qualifying but also these races to join the factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo team in the SRO America Esports competition, or SRO Esports competitions across the world actually this year. And that all kicks off, at least in North America, next week, Robbie. So May 22nd is our first round of this 2021 championship.
Yeah, there's a ton of esports competitions coming up for us. We start with, of course, all of our sprint rounds for Asia, Europe, and America. And then on the same weekend, on Saturday, we'll also have SRO Europe, the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Kickoff, which will be a 3-hour race at Monza. So lots of esports action, and lots of Assetto Corsa competizione action that's on tap for all of you here in the next week.
And, of course, the exciting announcement in the recent months about SRO globally sort of adopting esports into the points rounds for the 2021 season, at least in Europe. Tell me a little bit about that. Of course, for the team points, now there is Assetto Corsa Competizione is actually going to count for some of the team points in the real series. Explain that to me a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think with our new partnership with Fanatec, it was great to introduce a new element of sim racing into our real world racing championship. So GT World Challenge Europe, which is now known as the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS, has a esports competition on site at several events this season. Each pro and silver team has to nominate one of their drivers to compete in this on-site championship, and they will earn points based on if they podium to the team championship. So it's first of its kind, blending the virtual and the real world together, and we're really excited to have this new esports initiative with Fanatec and AWS on site at several events, and we look to roll that out in the near future to our other regions as well.
So an exciting transition into the esports world, and I had a discussion about this the other day about really. We're ahead of the game here at SRO to be jumping into this. You would think that other organizations would have already jumped on it. Of course, NASCAR and IndyCar have been utilizing esports, but not in an official capacity, more of a fun, sort of weekday activity. But to actually include it in a team championship is a really exciting transition, and it was only a matter of time before it happened. So really cool for SRO to be at the forefront of that. Another note on Tubagas Farhan, who's starting in 3rd. He was a GT Academy finalist in 2015 and 2016. Now, we've seen a handful of GT Academy drivers here in SRO Esports. I'm thinking back about Brian Heitkotter, who joined us and was massively successful in the first season of GT Rivals back about a calendar year ago. So I would say Farhan's got a pretty good base to kick off. If he was in GT Academy and a national finalist, I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, exactly. We've had Nick McMillan as well, and a lot of drivers went through the GT Academy, and I think have bode well for themselves in sim racing and real world racing, like Highcotter and racing here in the States with Pirelli World Challenge. But he wants to be you. I have down on his goal is to become a sim racing shoutcaster. So look out, Kyle.
Someone on a forum once called me a hobby shoutcaster, and I really enjoyed that title, and I wanted to put that on my business card because I like that a lot. But Farhan has the goal of being a sim racing commentator, which I think is really neat. And
20 seconds.
I started doing that in college with my roommate, and ended up traveling across the country to announce for for SRO and for Grid Life and other organizations, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm living the dream. But with that said, we've got 5 seconds left here until we get our pace lap beginning. And this is an open, free pace lap here, Robbie, so that means that they have to sort of pace themselves and stay orderly. And this is another sort of evaluation method, I would think, is how cleanly and how tidy can you keep the pace lap?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like in real life. We don't have widgets and other gizmos to help us understand how to form up for a formation lap. So this is just like real life training. So it's definitely from the academy perspective that we want to bring. HPD has launched a GT3 academy for real life drivers that kicked off here in North America last year. So we want to use this as training grounds for sim racers to bring them into pro sim racing, and also have some real world opportunities for them as well.
Field now rolling on this pace lap, and we'll turn them loose here at the end of this lap for a 45-minute sprint race just after 3 p.m. local time in the simulator, just after quarter past the hour on the East Coast here in the United States. And the field on a single file pace lap. They're going to double up as they get towards the end of the lap. We'll have about 4.5 rows of race cars. The last driver in line, Colin Louie, in the number 11. And he'll start towards the tail of the field. And in a race like this with 9 cars in it, I don't actually hate being at the back of the field. Gives you a little bit of time to sort of break early and evaluate your competition before driving forward. And he's actually relatively new to sim racing. He started racing in November 2019 in the sim racing world. And he tried a simulator at an expo, so new to the competition, and already finding himself in some pretty high stakes action here this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we saw from qualifying, everyone's times were fairly close, so especially in that top 5. So it should be pretty exciting action. We've prepped the drivers. We told them that again, we're looking to evaluate their performance overall. Winning isn't everything, so definitely work together, race each other hard, but leave each other room. So we're expecting a good race, even with a 9-car field.
And you see the drivers warming up their tires and brakes and getting everything up to operating temperature here. And it's 33 degrees Celsius track temp, so not particularly hot, just about 8 degrees warmer than ambient temp. Ambient's 25 degrees Celsius. You can see that in the top right weather bug there. And wind just about 3 kilometers out of the southeast. So not going to be a significant tailwind of any sort here, especially on the back straightaway where the wind can be a pretty big boost if you have enough velocity down towards turn number 10. Rolling into turn 11, this right-hander that comes after turn 10 and leads into this sort of funnel-like right-hander. And then you'll come out of this corner and head into turns 15 and 16 to finish out the lap. Mia Rose out front, red LEDs adorning the front grille on this mid-engined Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Sean Madison now gearing up and getting ready to pull alongside. And with 45 minutes on the clock, now the field bunches up. A little bit messy there at the back as everyone gets into formation. Again, no bugs or widgets to help them. This is all manually done. And what better way to learn than in crunch time here?
Yeah, they're looking nice, just forming up their rows, still warming up the brakes a bit to try to keep some temp in those tires. So we're almost onto the front straightaway, and we'll see some green lights here shortly.
So 4.5 rows of Acura NSX GT3 Evos. Mia Rose on the inside for the first corner. Again, you're watching the qualifying race for the HPD Academy. Again, they're going to select drivers to participate in the SRO competitions in the esports world across the globe this year. And now it's time to go racing. The green flag flies. We're racing at Paul Ricard. And 9 Acura NSX GT3 Evo storming towards turn number 1. The 3 and the 1 side by side towards turn number 1. Mia Rose leads the way through the first corner, and they're double wide behind him. Now sorted out, single file, and everybody, well, there goes a cone flying. I was going to say everybody got through the first couple corners without incident. Sean Madison pressuring Mia Rose out of line there, but not close enough to attack.
Yeah, solid start from everyone in the pack. Very clean. We do have a drive-through, so I wonder if Shaquille there jumped the start. So we'll have to review that and take a look. But overall, everyone is clean through the first sector here.
Yugo Osaki trying to get back to Ilhamu Karim Shakil in the green and white car. That's the number 6 just up the road. And you mentioned earlier that the numbers associated with the drivers are essentially their seating position based on qualifying. So one of the drivers that did not get a very good start was Raditya Hendarmo. He's dropped all the way back to 6th. He was seated in 2nd, so not the best start for him. And up front, Mia Rose feeling pressure from Sean Madison. Here he comes to the inside for turn number 10, side by side through the fastest corner on the racetrack. Mia Rose runs way wide back across the bollards and into 2nd place. That was not, oh, there's a touch there. Mia Rose gets into the back of Madison. Headlights flashing, clearly upset there, or maybe an apology, but Sean Madison takes the lead away in dramatic fashion through the fastest corner on the racetrack.
Yeah, boy, what an opening lap. Again, you know, all these competitors in the top 5 at least were so close in qualifying, especially Mia and Sean. So we expect to see them battle it out for this race for sure. And here comes Mia back on the attack as they head into the last sector, or the last corner.
Yeah, Mia Rose really on it right now. It seems like she's carrying a lot more mid-corner speed, but perhaps giving some up on exit. The first lap is complete, and the leader will be Sean Madison as he crosses the line. And behind, there's a bit of dramas behind Yugo Osaki. Whoa, and behind them, there is Hendarmo in the white and red car. And here comes Ben Ho in the number 9 up the inside for turn number 1. This gets really tight down here, and Ben Ho will back out. That was smart decision-making there. Again, you're expected to leave room if there's overlap, Robbie, but I think there's also a point when if you're alongside, you know the track's going to narrow up, to back out, and you've got 42 minutes left. Why stick the car in a place where you could have contact? That was a smart move by Ben Ho.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're the car making a pass, it's your responsibility to make a clean and safe pass. So if you know you're not going to be able to make it, or the door may close on you, you need to back out. That's just, you know, heads up racing, and that's what we're looking for. We want to make sure that these drivers are going to represent, obviously, the HPD team well and showcase what they can do, but make smart decisions so that, you know, you don't get penalties within these races, especially endurance races, and keep your car moving in the right direction.
How about the speeds we're carrying here into turn number 10? And Mia Rose again closes up on Sean Madison, but not close enough to have a look at a pass just yet. I was just so impressed with the move that Madison made in a high opportunity area. The slipstream on that back straightaway is pretty intense, and it leads into a risky corner to pass, yes, but also a good passing opportunity because it follows that long straightaway. But Madison didn't show a lot of restraint there. He just went for it, and to his credit, made it stick. But Mia Rose now closing back in, and I don't think this fight's over yet.
Yeah, look at their nose to tail for the entire lap. Mia's looking for any way by, especially now that they're driving the same machinery. It's going to be really tough to make and execute a pass, so she's going to have to look for any slight mistake that she can take advantage of. But, you know, if Madison can just keep his car moving in the direction he wants to and make it very wide, it'll be very tough for Mia to get by.
And you actually make a really good point. Typically in SRO Esports competition, you'd have a variety of cars, front engine, rear wheel drive, you know, rear engine, rear wheel drive, mid engine, rear wheel drive, and you get all this different, you know, car weights and horsepower levels, and it all ends up being very close, but the cars have advantages in different places. This is the first time that I've seen a race in Assetto Corsa Competizione where everybody is on the same playing field as everybody else. The Acura NSX GT3 Evo is a very high performance machine, but matched up against itself 9 times over, the only advantage you're going to get is going to come out of the driver behind the wheel. And that's what makes this so interesting to watch, is that every pass that's made is not aided by any car advantage. It's all on the driver.
Yeah, as you can see, she's trying to get a slipstream down the back straightaway to get any advantage over Madison. Madison goes in to defend, which if he can come back, he won't hurt his exit speed. But yeah, they're right on the limit of the car. It's going to be extremely tough. Any little mistake you need to take advantage of. And here comes Mia around the outside trying to make a move, but not going to happen this time.
Whoa, and Sean Madison runs a little wide. That's going to let Mia Rose get to the inside through turn number 12. Now door-to-door again for the race lead here this afternoon. And Madison again re-clears. So a failed pass attempt that time, but I think Mia's definitely quicker. Madison was the opportunist in the early moments of the race, but Whether or not he's got the pace to last, that's a whole other question. Again, Mia's carrying so much more mid-corner speed. You see, and on the brakes too, got the ABS tune just right. And now nose to tail as they come up onto the front straightaway here, and Mia should have the opportunity to slipstream and take a rundown into turn 1.
Yeah, Sean went to defend into that last corner, which really hurt his exit speed. So Mia's right on his rear bumper. Is going to take a peek. I don't know if she is quite close enough, but they're also passing traffic, so it's going to be very tight here through the first turn 1 and turn 2 sector.
Yeah, that was Raditya Hendarmo pulling out of the pits. Not exactly sure what led to him being down there, but comes back out on the racetrack. And here comes Mia Rose up the inside, a late move down the inside. There's contact and door slams Sean Madison off course. And here comes the third place car, Tobagas Farhan up the middle. He's going to grab a spot. Mia Rose again rubs doors with the number 4 car, and it's calamity here at the front of the field, and Farhan drops a position back behind Madison. But the driver that's going to get away from all this, I believe, is that, where is Mukarim Shakil? Right there in front. So that this is all of a sudden it's popped off here in SRO this afternoon. Look at this. Here comes the 4 car.
Yeah, one small touch. Both cars, the two leading cars, are moved out of position, and others are there to pounce. That definitely didn't hurt Mia Rose's chances at winning this race. She falls back quite significantly to Madison, and now she's being attacked by Farhan and Shakil, but we'll see if she can gather herself up and run down Madison.
Yeah, at the front there, that was going to, in a track like this, it's so wide at certain parts and so narrow at others, and running door to door is difficult enough. But again, there's 37 minutes to go in this race and no required pit stop, so you have to ask, was that the time to make the pass? Was that the opportunity to take? And Mia had overlap there, and I don't remember, I don't think that it was all that tight. I don't think Madison really pinched Mia all that much, so the contact there may be a bit unwarranted, but Madison was able to pull away, and now is 1.7 seconds on Mia Rose. I don't see any significant damage on either of these cars, so they should be able to continue, but a little bit of drama there on the, I guess it was the 4th or 5th lap.
And that's really stacked up now, the battle for P2, with Mia Rose, Farhan, Shakil, and Osaka not too far behind. So it's going to be interesting to see if she can drive away from that pack and try to run down Madison, or if she falls into the clutches of those NSX Evos just right behind her.
Once you make a mistake like that, you just got to get right back on the horse, and Mia Rose is doing just that. Last time by was about 1.5 seconds off of Madison because of all that drama, but has already started to reel Madison back in. The gap is now 1.1 seconds. It was as much as 1.7, just outside of the slipstream range here. Once you're within 1 second, that slipstream becomes a lot stronger, but 1.1 back, I'm not sure it's going to do a whole lot for you. Tobagas Farhan is just behind Mia Rose, about 1 second back. Then Shakil about a second back from that. Then Yugo Osaki, we haven't talked a whole lot about yet today, in this bright yellow car, trailing Shakil. And hasn't really moved up, hasn't really dropped down, has been sort of holding steady back here in 5th.
Yeah, he's biding his time, just taking a look at what's going on in front of him. He's got Shakil right in front of him, so he's really close, at least as Shakil goes a bit wide on the first apex here into this complex. But looking for opportunity again. Since you're driving all the same machinery, it's very tough to leverage your car's strengths and weaknesses to pass others, and you've got to just look for mistakes and look to pounce when you can.
So the other thing to mention is, are these drivers all required to run telemetry here so that they can be evaluated after the fact? I think I saw a note about that.
Yeah, we're requiring telemetry, as obviously we've got the race replay as well for both in-game and the stream, so we're able to look at a variety of different angles, go back and look at battles, look at the telemetry files to see how they, each lap that they ran in the race, if we needed to dig down into the MOTAC data. But we have a lot of information at our disposal to help us in the decision-making process to select drivers.
So that's an interesting fact. Again, you can look at the drivers and the car and realize that all the cars are exactly the same, but how they drive the car, as I mentioned earlier, is what's so different. And you don't have to rely on just watching them. You can go back and analyze where they're braking in relation to everybody else, where they're getting back on throttle, how much steering input they have. And that's perhaps the most important data to get out of the day, is to go back and look at everybody and say, well, why is one driver better than the other? Well, we can have a pretty fair look just by having a look at the telemetry. Back up to second place, Mia Rose in the number 1 car is about a second back from Madison, and last time by was a 10th quicker. So Mia Rose is trailing back down, and going back to 4th place, Ilhamukarim Shakil is feeling a lot more pressure from Yugo Osaki and Sergei Mironenko, who's about a half a second back.
Yeah, that battle's really heating up for the 4th position there. So it's a 4-car battle, which is really cool to see. And going back to the telemetry, I think another part of the process is we want to, especially in the endurance races, when these drivers have to share the car, we want to find drivers that also have similar driving styles, so that the car setup and all of that comes into play, and that they can blend well together and be fast and quick and in the same machine that they have to share during a race. So yeah, data is extremely important, and this battle is just really heating up between these guys.
Yugo Osaki in the number 8 car. Here comes Marenko up to the inside of the teal car. Now it's a drag race down the front stretch between those two. This is a battle for 5th. Looks like Marenko's going to get the spot, at least for now. And just behind them is, I think that's the 11. No, that's the 2 car of Radita Hendarmo. He is not on the lead lap. Trying to earn back whatever spots he can. Without the opportunity for full course yellows, he's likely going to be stuck there. But the best thing Hendarmo can do now is get back into the fight again. It doesn't matter where you finish. It's all about the racecraft and the telemetry that you're outputting. So there's no reason why Hendarmo has to go into panic mode. Just finish out the race and race everybody else as if you were on the lead lap. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly. I think he's, doing what he needs to do and sticking with this pack, even though he went a lap down. I think he's going to at least be able to showcase what he can do from a performance perspective and racecraft perspective. But going back to the battle, I think, definitely Osaki, made a mistake going into that last corner, probably broke a bit too late, left the door open, couldn't get back on throttle, and has lost position.
Back up to the front, Madison and Mia Rose now separated by, well, they were 0.6 apart. Now it's a full second again as they head into turn 10. And I look at turn 10 as perhaps one of the more crucial corners on the racetrack because of how fast it is. If you get it wrong, you can get yourself off course very easily, and the chance to get yourself a penalty is really easy over there. A lot of the rest of the racetrack where you could run wide, you're not really carrying that much speed, so it's easy to sort of recover on course. But in turn 10, if you make a mistake, you're going far off track, and we saw Mia Rose do that earlier. You get a couple mulligans that you get to exploit before you get that penalty, but you don't want to be off course all that much. And you see some of the yellow curbs around here too. Don't hit those. Those will definitely damage your car.
Yeah, those anti-cut curbs are, or more so track limit curbs, are just there to really jar the car and could definitely either do tire damage or suspension damage. So you definitely don't want to run too high on those. Anything painted is great, but you can't get 4 wheels over that white painted line as well. So Paul Ricard is definitely tricky for drivers because there is just so much land that you could drive on, but you have to keep the car within those white lines to ensure that you don't get any track cut warnings.
Big slide there about Ilhamukarim Shakil. Car kind of sidestepped through the corner. Here's Marenko and Osaki. Nose to tail. Osaki getting a pretty decent run here. And whoa, big bobble there, but he was going to set himself up for a fantastic run onto the back straightaway, but that wiggle, I think, cost him a lot of time. And now you see Shakil off to driver's right. That's not the traditional racing line, but it looks like Mironenko is going to follow him here just to stay in the slipstream. Osaki's going to do the same, and here comes Hendarmo, and he's going to move off to driver's left onto the traditional racing line, and they're going to run side by side here into turn 10.
Yep, that's what the slipstream can do for you here, as we saw illustrated by Hendarmo, but he's not going to be able to get to that apex and put the power down quite as well as the cars in front of him. So these guys are still going to run nose to tail 4-car battle.
Osaki ran him just a little bit wide up on the entry curbing, which I guess is fair play here. But Osaki hangs on to 6th for now. Tries to get back to Mironenko to get that spot back after Mironenko beat him out of turn 16 a couple laps ago. No changes at the front. Sean Madison still leads by 1 second, the 3rd seed of the 9 drivers that have joined us here, I guess, this evening in Asia.
Yeah, it's definitely quite late in Asia, so we appreciate their understanding of our broadcast schedule and joining us in the late evening hours to race with us.
Oh, big move here. Shaquille goes defensive. Mironenko all the way to driver's right, gets squeezed a little bit on corner entry, now tucks back in line. Shaquille's all out of kilter now, and here comes Osaki. Great battle here for position. They're going to chase each other over to the side of the track. 3 wide for position down here towards turn number 5. Now the 5 car gets singled back out and goes for position, takes it away, but runs wide. There's a contact. Now the 6 car spins.
Ooh, yeah, that was just destined to happen with 4 cars battling for the same position going into the same turn, and just that little love tap there sent the number 6 car around.
Just a quick look at it again, the replay there. We head back live, and Ilhamu Karim Shaquille now scored down in 6th, and it looks like Mironenko is going to pull away with Hendarmo in tow. We'll move back forward up front as Mia Rose is now tracking back down Madison in a visual way. Look how much time she gained there. She's now only about 2 car lengths back. Huge gain for Rose that time through turn 10.
Yep, she's right there on the rear bumper. It's going to make a move.
Oh,
inside.
Contact again!
Oh, contact again, and both of them are off track and trying to rejoin, but Mia is going to take advantage of that contact and gain a position.
Now let's have another look at this from high above, and we'll see what happened here. Again, Mia Rose already made contact with Sean Madison earlier in the day. So I wonder if this is a similar scenario where she gets to the inside and gets squeezed, or if this was a move that could have waited. She just sort of dives in here and runs a little wide, and that was definitely on Mia Rose. Not once, but twice made contact there. Not earning a lot of brownie points in Sean Madison's world, I'm sure. But they both did keep it straight. That was great driving by Madison to gather that back up. That could have been a whole lot worse, but Mia Rose does lead the race now.
Yeah, definitely. From that overhead helicopter shot, definitely looked like Mia just tried to sneak in there a bit too late and made that contact that pushed Sean Madison out of the way. Unfortunately, it hurt both of them, but Mia did gain the position on that front, so we should probably see a post-race incident, and stewards will make a decision on that. And
looking at the 3rd place driver, Tabagas Farhan, he is looking up the road saying, let's do that again, do it another time. He's only about 1.5 seconds back from the 2nd place car of Sean Madison. I'm sure he'd like them to scrap or spar additionally so that he can get back up here into the mix. I'm not sure that his pace is quite there, but he's awful close. So, they're going at it again. Madison closes back in here on Mia Rose through turn 10. He wants a little bit of retaliation. He wants to go back by Mia Rose. But again, are they losing sight of the of really what's at stake here? And again, it's not about winning the race. It's about demonstrating racing ability and race craft. And while they're leading in 2nd, I'm not sure that that's the goal today.
Yeah, sometimes, when you're in the car and you're in the heat of the moment, you get that red miss, right? So, our drivers here could be demonstrating that a bit. So we'll see how they battle back. We'll see how Sean battles back from adversity by being hit, and see if he can string together a few good laps to get back onto that rear bumper of Mia Rose. And we'll see now how Mia, under pressure, handles a car behind her that's looking to make a pass and make a move.
And to Raditya Hendarmo's credit, he has worked his way by a handful of lead lap cars now. His pace is on par with about 4th or 5th at the moment. Of course, a lap down in 9th for reasons that we haven't yet figured out, but he's right back on pace and running very, very well, and not a scratch on that car, so he's doing a great job. Again, positions aren't really what's to grab here today. It's all about the telemetry and showing your racing capability, and he's done that. He's put Mironenko behind him, and Yugo Osaki is starting to run down that teal number 5, and these two have had a scrap once or twice today, and I'm not sure that we're done seeing that just yet.
Well, they've been running nose to tail pretty much this entire race, so we'll see if they can make any other moves to change their position, but so far so good, clean racing. You know, the one incident where Osaki did turn the number 6 car of Shaquille, but overall they're you know, locked in a battle for this entire race under pressure, which is fun to watch.
Up front, Mia Rose extending her lead. It's now 1.2 seconds. But the battle right now is for 4th place. Sergei Mironenko and Yugo Osaki running 4th and 5th. Osaki using a little bit less of the racetrack than Mironenko. Staying off the curbs a little bit. Now, you know, this is a dry condition race where you're not really worried about running on the curbs, but if this were a wet race, Osaki would be running a great line because those curbs get very, very slippery. And we've seen that in the past, even as recently as the first GT World Challenge America round of 2021, or I should say second round, back at Circuit of the Americas a few weeks ago. With how slippery the curbs can get in the wet, you want to stay off of those painted curbs.
Yeah, definitely, and the game simulates rain extremely well, and especially in those cases, you know, once there is a lot of rain on the racing surface, those curbs become extremely slippery, and you definitely don't want to run on top of them. If it's just lightly raining, you can definitely still use the curbs, but once it starts to really pour, you want to try to stay off the painted surface as much as possible.
Working through the first of 3 sectors here, just about halfway through this first race. Again, if you just joined us, qualifying race of sorts for selecting drivers for the factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo team in the SRO Esports events for 2021 across the world. This is, of course, the Asian region. We're going to do the European region just after at the top of the hour, and then followed up by the North American region at the end of the broadcast. So make sure you stick around for those. Expecting slightly larger fields for those as well. Here's Osaki with a big run on Mironenko. He's going to take it driver's left down towards turn 10, side by side, well over 160 miles an hour. Oh, that's really dicey, but Osaki gets it done. Mironenko keeps overlap, though, now into turn 11. Mironenko pulls back ahead. Bit of a failed attempt there for Osaki, but he gave it all he had.
Yeah, that was exciting to watch, definitely. I mean, passing on the outside of turn 10 is quite the feat, and he almost stuck it, and unfortunately the next corner was a right-hander where Mironenko could still sneak in and still keep his position.
So he'll have to gear up again. And so many racetracks, this is a discussion I always have about how racetracks are designed and built. Maybe not intentionally so, but you know, many racetracks have a handful of corners that will lead up to a good passing opportunity. And I think turn 10, even though it's such a fast corner, it's probably one of your best passing opportunities on the racetrack because it follows along straightaway. So that means that the previous sector, the beginning of sector 2, is very important because it's a lot of these tight and twisty switchbacks that allow you to set yourself up for that straightaway. We're in sector 1 right now, and it's sort of a medium speed sector. You're up in 3rd and 4th gear, a little bit of 5th for a moment, then back down a couple gears. And then about the middle way through this, you're in sector 2, and this is all about setting yourself up. If you're Yugo Osaki, you're trying to sort of plan ahead, turn in later, and keep it a later apex to then the driver in front, and then you can really set yourself up for this straightaway. But he's a little far back now to do anything about it.
Yeah, he's definitely lost some ground and trying to claw his way back up from his side-by-side battle, but he's still got the car in sight, which is always great motivation for a driver. Try to run him down, and at least he can put some clean laps down. About this point in the race, we just passed the halfway mark, and obviously tire management now comes into play. Let's see how well they've managed their tires for the first half of the race so they can set themselves up for to have a good race car for the second half.
That's a good point about the tire management. We haven't really talked a whole lot about that today, but again, the Pirellis on these cars, very durable for the most part, but if you slide them around and abuse them, they are going to lose pace over the course of a race, not only from tire degradation, but also from tire temperature. And at this point in the race, about 25 minutes in, you're going to start feeling that if you've been aggressive with slip angle, with braking, with acceleration. So the drivers that are nicer to their equipment will generally be more consistent over the course of a run. And just to give you an idea of how much that could be, Yugo Osaki's last lap was a 157 flat. His best time was a 156.2, so that's an 0.8 of a second difference. And even for the race leader, Mia Rose, her last lap was a 155.6 to her best of a 155.2. So that's 0.4 slower. So maybe a bit more consistency out of the one car. And I would say that the most consistent of anybody in the field is probably Tubagas Farhan, who's only about 0.2 off of his best lap, but doesn't quite have the pace of the front two.
Yeah, great observation there, Kyle. I think, like you mentioned, you know, we are looking for consistency, especially over a stint or during a sprint race. You know, it's only our GT World Challenge sprint races are only 60 minutes, so you got to be quick throughout the entire race. But when you're also sharing the car in an endurance round, you want to make sure that you're consistent enough to knock down every lap and not fall too far behind other cars. So consistency is a big key into the HPD GT3 Esports Academy here.
And you can see in Assetto Corsa Competizione some of the amazing simulations that they've done. Whoa, Farhan runs a little wide, going to hit some of those bollards. That will get him a warning for track limits violations. You'll notice around the racetrack in certain places the existence of marbles, and they're very easy to spot here because of the bright blue contrasting paint. Those are essentially just pieces of tire that have shredded off the Pirellis and have basically balled up. You get out wide onto those and you're going to have a really bad time. They're simulated very well in Assetto Corsa Competizione, but this is another reason why you want to stay on the racetrack, is because those marbles tend to form offline.
Yeah, once you pick those up, you know, it's like driving on ice almost. It, you know, instantly your tires lose grip, and it takes a few corners to get your tires re-scrubbed in and all of those marbles off of them. So you definitely, like you said, want to stay on the racing surface. If you go offline, you then have to just be very careful that you make sure you clean off your tires and understand what type of grip that you have at the moment to be able to push.
No changes up front. Mia Rose still leads by 2.2 seconds. We're going to head back to the fourth place battle between Sergei Mironenko and Yugo Osaki. About 0.6 between them. This is the closest battle on the racetrack, and this is all chess match for Yugo Osaki. There's 17 minutes left. He has not managed to get around this 5 car yet, and it's all about how do you plan to get by this number 5 car. You're evaluating Sergei's driving. You're trying to figure out where he's weak and where he's strong. The car is exactly the same, so it's all down to the driver. Where can I be better than Sergei? And that's what Yugo's trying to sort out right now.
Yeah, and that's you know, a key to any spec racing series. If you watch a variety of different spec series, whether it's Formula cars or sports cars or touring cars even, you know, when you're all driving the same car, it just becomes extremely more difficult for you to understand or figure out how to get around the car in front of you, and you just have to look at where you have a bit more speed, maybe a bit more entry speed, and whoa, as Osaki got a little jolted there as he tracked out of turn 10, but you know, he's looking for every single little opportunity that will help him gain some time ahead of the car in front of him, but it's extremely difficult when you're driving the same machinery, for sure.
Just took another look at it. That was a really big wobble, and that's one of those heart-stopping moments when you feel the car kick out in one of the fastest corners of the racetrack, well over 150 for the majority of that corner, leaning on the downforce of this Acura NSX GT3 Evo. And this car, very well constructed, again, built to GT3 specifications, so it's BOP'd in some ways, but a wonderful looking supercar. This is super Batmobile is how I describe it, and it's got a whole bunch of aero on the nose and on the tail, with that aided by that huge rear wing, and it really is a very capable car, but it's also very balanced because of its mid-engine design, and just like any other car, if you step over the limit of that balance, you're going to find yourself in a very sketchy situation. I think a lot of drivers prefer oversteer than understeer. They'd like the car to rotate more and be loose rather than tight, and it seems like the Acura today is set up in such a way that it's just a little bit loose, which is great if you can handle it, and Osaki almost lost it there.
Yeah, there's definitely drivers that prefer the mid-engine rear-wheel drive platform than a front-engine rear-wheel drive car. There's different driving styles, different driving characteristics, and the NSX GT3 Evo has had great success, especially in GT World Challenge America competition. For several years. They won the championship last year in the silver category. They won the championship in the Pro-Am category the year before. Had tons of race wins, so the NSX is definitely very capable in the right hands. And here in the virtual world, same thing. They've started to really find themselves at the top of the time charts recently, especially when they race at tracks like Bathurst and a lot of the intercontinental GT tracks where the factory team had raced in the past few years. So it's exciting to watch, and you know, our goal here is to with HPD is to place the very best drivers that we can find for HPD, and hope that we can get this NSX GT3 Evo on the podiums and in championship contention for the various SRO Esports championships that are starting off next week.
So just over 13 minutes to go. Mia Rose is the race leader, qualified on pole, and at one point did lose the lead to Sean Madison for a handful of laps. And Madison got kind of shuffle out of the way and back into second place. Now Madison last two times by has actually been a hair quicker than Mia Rose, so I might be daring enough to say that we are not completely done battling at the front here. And Madison has a little bit of extra motivation. Both times that Mia Rose was next to Sean early in the race, he got roughed up and put off course, so that is going to motivate you just a little bit more to get back to Mia Rose and beat her the old-fashioned way and get by her without contact.
Yeah, he's definitely taken a good chunk of time off. Just a few laps ago, he was over 2 seconds behind and is only now a second and a half essentially, and so he's reeling her in. And like you mentioned, he's now he's 1.2 seconds, so he's definitely catching, and we'll see if Mia's just on cruise control at the moment, since she has a decent gap. But it looks like that Sean Madison could be within the next few laps pressuring Mia for the lead once again. And
once you get under 1 second, again, the slipstream between turns 7 and 10, that is a pretty crucial moment. And I wanted to show the track map one more time here, because you'll notice that turn 7 and 10, there's no 8 and 9 in between. Well, that's a chicane that we're not running here today, but at the exit of turn 7, it's a straight shot down to turn 10, and that is one of the most crucial areas to get that slipstream. But if you're wondering earlier why there's no 9 and 10, well, we're skipping it today and running the straightaway version, which I think races a little bit better, because you get that extra long slipstream area where you can close in on the driver in front. That time through, Mia Rose gained back 2/10, so Madison did lose a little bit of ground, but they're sort of trading blows right now. Big cone going sailing. I think Mia knocked one out of the way.
Yeah, there's cones flying everywhere, and I guess that's another thing ACC simulates really well is when you hit a board or a cone or even some track signage out there, it becomes debris that you have to navigate around the racetrack as well. Even in some circuits, tire bundles. I know in our British GT DLC pack, there's always some tire bundles that always go flying, but like you mentioned, yeah, Sean's losing a little bit of time. Again, we're not really evaluating overall performance. Obviously we want to see how they do across the entire race. So finishing position isn't necessarily the number one factor here, but it does look like Sean is at least battling back from his adversity and trying to catch the leader and showing great form in doing so.
We don't have our 7 and 10 seeds here today, but looking at the running order and forgetting about Radita Hendarmo for a moment, because he's a lap down after an early pit stop, our seeds are generally in order. You just got to swap 8 and 6, and they're pretty much there, which is interesting to me that their single lap pace would sort of average out in a race. Typically you see drivers that are sort of one lap heroes that are really, really good on a flying lap, but then in the race burn up their stuff. But in this environment, it seems like they're sort of where they were qualified. Now, it's also interesting because these cars tend to get faster as the run goes on. We mentioned the tire wear, but it's sort of negated by the fact that you're burning off fuel over the course of a 45-minute race. So as the car is losing overall grip, it's actually getting lighter, and that will sort of average out or even make the car quicker over the course of a run.
Yeah, these tires are you could certainly double stint them in some cases as well. So they should definitely last 60 minutes, no problem. 45 minutes even is a bit easier, so they can push the tires a bit more. But like you mentioned, once they start burning off fuel, the car gets faster and faster and faster as the stint goes on, and it averages out, or even you start to gain a bit because of that as well. But yeah, Sean Madison's managed to get the gap back down to the 1.2 range, so he's definitely a bit quicker here through this segment than Mia is. But Mia is just really managing her time now and just staying out front and trying to see if she can keep this gap consistent throughout the lap.
It does seem like Sean Madison has been really, really good through sectors 1 and 2, but this third and final sector that Mia Rose is now entering is really where she comes alive. And maybe it's because of how chuckable this third sector is. You're really just throwing the car here off into turn 10. Not a lot of nuance about it. Just throw the car in, let the car settle on the downforce, and that's working well. But Madison closed in that time and down to 1 second flat. And maybe the slipstream helping a little bit, but his goal now is to keep that gap constant so he can utilize the slipstream the next lap around.
Yeah, he's showing great form again. He's closing in down to a second now. Sights are set, the rabbit's there for him to chase down, and he just needs to put his head down and see if he can reel her in. But Mia's not putting a tire wrong now that she's out front. I think she probably preferred to be in the first place position, and definitely struggled to get by Madison without making contact with him. So cold tires at the beginning of the race probably played a big factor in that. Sean was just a little bit better and took advantage of to get around Mia in those opening laps. But going back to this battle here, Ozaki is definitely now reeled in Mironenko and is only 0.3 behind, so he's looking to see if he can bounce.
Yeah, just under 8 minutes to go, so the pressure is on now to complete this pass if Ozaki is aiming to do that. Again, some cones scattered across the racetrack, as you mentioned. The debris a very real factor, not only in Assetto Corsa Competizione, but in SRO competition and just race car competition in general. You always got to be watching out for what's on the racetrack and avoiding it. And Ozaki is just a tick faster than Mironenko, but not fast enough to make this pass easy. Been working on this one for the majority of the race. And with 7 minutes to go, I think the pressure is on. If he wants it, he's got to go up there and just go take it away. I don't think Mironenko is going to make a mistake significant enough to allow this pass to happen without a lot of effort.
Yeah, when it comes back to just being in that same machinery, right? It's just so tough to gain an advantage over the car in front of you if you guys are running roughly the same pace. You might have some corners that you're a bit better in, other corners that you're not as strong in, and I know from a driving perspective, being in that case, and for me, I've raced mainly spec series as my entire career, so it's just tough to sort out in your mind, like, why can't I gain much more speed on this competitor in front of you? But they're racy. They're looking. He's pushing hard, and he's trying to bring that gap down, and hopefully he can get a chance here in the closing minutes of this race.
The other thing to consider is following this closely. The slipstream on the straightaways will help you, but in the corners, the aerodynamic sort of wash off the back of the wing of the car in front is going to be a disadvantage to follow. Again, the car in front will push the air out of the way, which is a great thing on the straightaway. When you get to the corner, though, there's not going to be a lot of air left. It's a kind of a low-pressure area, and the wings and things on these cars will not really operate to full efficiency if they don't have all the air that they're designed to have on them. So Osaki's sort of in a hard spot here where he can't really eclipse the aerodynamic wash off the back of the 5 of Sergei Mironenko. Meanwhile, up front, Sean Madison is sort of stuck in the same purgatory here behind Mia Rose. This could get interesting, though, because that that's back straightaway here, now within 0.7 of a second, that's close enough where the slipstream can pull you within a couple car lengths.
Yeah, he's really closed that gap. 0.7 off of Mia Rose's rear bumper, and we can watch as we look out of the back of Mia Rose's car here and see if he can close in any more going into turn 10, and it looks like definitely he's getting closer and closer, inching, using that slipstream to his advantage. Mia has to defend.
And whoa, that's a big dive to the inside and the block there down to the to the driver's right-hand side of the racetrack. And Mia Rose pulled right, and we're going to get another look at that as they came down the straightaway. Goes defensive. I don't really know if that was a block. She moved right as the 3-car moved, but that looked a lot like Circuit of the Americas a couple weeks ago in our Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS race at COTA. That was a moment for sure, but Mia Rose is bound determined to win this race, that's for sure.
Yeah, she was definitely on the defensive line to begin with. She made some slight movement, so it's definitely something the stewards will look into and judge accordingly. But I'd just like to see the fight. Madison has come back and is under a tenth of a second behind Mia Rose, and still battling to the very end. So he's done a good job managing his tires and has at least has the race car to battle for the lead here.
Well, 4 minutes to go. You're only going to get about 2 or 3 laps left in this race. And Madison now, he's got to be hot under the collar right now. This is all about keeping your composure at this point. You've been run off the track, you've been hit, you've been kind of shuffled out of the way, but Madison has not yet lost his cool. He could have very easily probably stayed where he was and caused the collision, but he backed out and thought, I'm gonna give this another go without making contact, and he's doing a great job. I think there's a lot of composure here that we're seeing out of Sean, and a lot of tolerance perhaps to some of the things that he's had to deal with today. But with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left, we'll see how much more tolerance he's got, or if he's okay settling for second.
Yeah, he's a bit further back, or about the same, I guess, as he was this final lap. So you see Mia's on the defensive line, just now hugs that inside white line, so no room for Madison to go on the right unless he goes off the track. So we'll see the slip trim here working. She comes back over to make the corner, and he's definitely now even closer than he was before, 2/10, but does have that bobble as he comes out.
Yeah, there's some arrow push as soon as Mia Rose pulled back in front. Let's watch this again. As soon as Mia Rose pulls back in front of the number 3, instantly all that downforce is lost on the nose of the car, and Sean Madison really struggled to get back in line there. So that was a frustrating moment for Sean, but he's still within a couple tenths of a second, still within striking distance, that's for sure. Meanwhile, for 4th, Mironenko is under fire from Osaki, and that was about as close as they've been. So this is also getting pretty hot.
Yeah, 2 great battles going on at the track right now. Just what we hoped for as this race got underway. Farhan has just been consistently in 3rd and had an uneventful race, which isn't a bad thing. He's been consistent and running a very clean race. But these 2 are still battling it out here for position and looking to see if Osaki can get by Mironenko here by the end of the race.
About a half a second between those 2, so that it will be a volatile position to keep our eyes on as well. Mia Rose now working through the middle of Sector 1. And Sean Madison, if he can stay within, I think you have to be within 0.6 of a second heading onto that back straightaway to have a real legitimate shot at getting the lead away. And we should be coming to the white flag next time by, so he's not close enough this time, but he could be at the next lap. Now, we do have a drive-through notification for Yugo Osaki. Now, we didn't catch what led to that, but if that is in fact a legitimate penalty, he will have to serve that before the race is over or be dropped to the tail end of the lead lap. Now, I would think in his current position, it would be better just to serve the drive-through.
Yeah, we only have a minute left, so you do get a few laps to serve your drive-through penalty. So he could just take a time penalty after the race ends, and most likely, especially here at a track like Paul Ricard, it's for too many track limit warnings. So he probably got his 4th track cut, and in the in-game stewarding instantly gives you a drive-through for that. I'm very familiar with that. Happened to me in ACC a few nights ago, and so I'm pretty sure he probably took a little bit too much liberty to go off the racing surface and got dinged with the drive-through. But here's that battle for the lead, which is nose to tail as we lead into the white flag.
Yeah, final lap, white flag is out, and it's a battle at the front here. Sean Madison on a mission, pulls that a line maybe to get out of the mirrors of Mia Rose, but we are about to see an absolute dogfight here at the front between 2 Acura NSX GT3 Evos. Mia Rose and Madison have traded blows earlier in the race. Sometimes you're the bat, sometimes you're the ball. And Madison has been the ball more often than not today, and I think he wants to be the bat now. He's up at the plate as the white flag comes out. And there's a little bit of traffic up the road. I don't think it'll be much of a factor.
Yeah, he's definitely closer than he's ever been before, and it'll be interesting to see if they catch that car, where they catch him, and how that could play a factor into the end of this race.
Well, again, 0.6 of a second leaving sector 2. That's exactly where you want to be. Madison is going to have a fantastic run here, but what will Mia Rose do to defend? She's going to have to make that car real wide. Here we go onto the back straightaway now. Madison's got a huge run. He's going to go to driver's left. Mia Rose is going to stay driver's right. They're going to touch once. And Madison's going to hold her real tight to driver's right. Is she going to back out? Oh, that's awful close into turn number 10. Oh, there's contact again, and the 3-car spins. So does the 1. Way off course in turn number 10. The 3 cars backwards. Where's Farhan? Coming with a head of steam past one of the cars. That's Mia Rose on the left. Madison's getting rolling. Farhan comes around the outside. Is it going to be enough to get the race lead here in the final 5 corners? Huge dramas on the last lap between the front 2. They'd had contact twice before, and a third time they will do again in the 6th to last corner. But Sean Madison pulls away, kind of wiggles and wobbles. Does he have damage to that car? So close here at the end. Tobagas Farhan was not quite close enough to pounce on those front 2 getting together. But Sean Madison, with only a couple tenths of a second to spare last corner, will come out of turn number 16 and will pick up the checkered flag in dramatic fashion here. From second to first in the final lap, 360 to win. Sean Madison gets it done. That was a moment.
Wow. Yeah, what an ending. As we've seen multiple times in this race, and as we have cars, this is a replay of the incident here of cars going backwards. Again, Farhan was just in the right place, right time, and at least took advantage of gaining a position in that last lap schmozzle that we just saw. And interesting race, definitely a lot for us to take a look at and just see how these drivers performed overall, and take a look at how they conducted themselves from a racecraft perspective, and we'll be able to see who we can name HPD JAS Pro drivers for the Asia region in just a few days.
Yeah, so there's a look at the final corner one last time. We'll have a look at the results, and then we'll transition into the European broadcast here in just a couple minutes. But there's a look again at the crossing of the stripe. Sean Madison gets it done in dramatic fashion there. He completed the pass. Mia Rose gave him a bit of a bump there at the end, but here is a look at your race results. And of course, it was Sean Madison that finally got past and got the win. Farhan in second, then Mia Rose in third, Sergei Marinenko in fourth, Hugo Osaki in fifth. Of course, everything is unofficial here because of the potential drive-through penalties there, but Yehumu Karim Shaquille sixth, then Ben Ho, Colin Louie, and Rita Darmo rounding out the rest of the field. We're going to head away for a quick break, I believe, and we'll be right back for the start of the European stream in just a few moments. Thanks for watching. The Asian portion of this broadcast is now complete. We'll move on to the European. GT World Challenge, powered by AWS, has embraced esports perhaps more than any other racing organization. In 2020, the GT Rivals competition here in North America and across the world made waves as we saw some of the best esports competition out there in Assetto Corsa Competizione. For 2021, that championship will continue, this time with some factory integration with Honda Performance Development, selecting drivers with a qualifying method. We've already had drivers across the world lay down qualifying laps, and now they're going to race it out to be evaluated for their racecraft and competition skills this morning here in North America. We're on the European portion of the broadcast now. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Robbie Montanola. Robbie, welcome back. Qualifying for the race here is complete. We've got 16 drivers. We just came out of the Asia region race, and that was a wild one. A collision on the final lap and some spiciness in the post-race, but now we're going to move over to the European region with a slightly larger field, but still the same stakes on the line.
Yeah, Kyle, it's what a race for our morning broadcast here. We move into the European region, which has some very notable names that have been racing in Assetto Corsa Competizione for quite some time as well. So I'm excited to watch how the Europeans do. They've always been quick, and we know from our SRO Esports European Championships that it's always been extremely competitive. So I expect no less of the 16 drivers that are here today for the HPD JAS Esports Academy, and look forward to seeing them get going.
Well, here is a look at our track map for this afternoon's race. Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, France. 5.79 kilometers around here. Here's a look at it. The blue sector is sector number 1. We're heading down towards the bottom right of your screen. Turn 1, a left-right combination into turn 2, a short straightaway into turns 3, 4, 5, and 6, where sector 1 ends and sector 2 begins in this red area here. Then at the exit at turn 7, it's a straight shot all the way down. Sector 2 is mostly just straightaway. Then you're going to enter turn number 10, the fastest corner on the racetrack, and also one of your best passing opportunities because of the long slipstream zone on approach to that corner. Then it's turns 11 and 12, these tight decreasing radius corners, into turns 13, 14, and 15 to round out the rest of the lap. So it's a very interesting racetrack. We've seen it today already put on some really fantastic racing, and the topic of discussion, Robbie, has been entering turn 10 in the slipstream that leads up to it. It's a fast corner, so it's a gutsy move to make there, but there's really no better place to get a slipstream that big and take a run that large into a corner like that.
Yeah, especially with these aero-dependent cars, you can definitely feel the slipstream as you get sucked into the rear end of the car in front of you. And we've seen a few different strategies play out in the Asia broadcast where we saw one car try to go around the outside. We saw obviously some very defensive moves going into the corner, some resulting in contact. But so it'll be interesting to see with this group what they can do and how they leverage that slipstream to gain a position.
Of course, the SRO Esports competitions across the world, and not only the esports stuff, but also the real-world racing can be watched here on GT World and on Facebook at the channels, all the typical places. But that's the wonderful thing about SRO, is that they've embraced this esports stuff, Robbie, and now you can watch SRO Esports in the same places that you can watch the real racing, and there's plenty of that happening across the world now, which is great after the year of uncertainty about racing, at least in the short term. But we have kicked off a couple seasons across the world. We started off GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, a couple months ago. We just had our second round a few weeks ago, and of course also kicking off across the world. A reminder that this is for Honda Performance Development and selecting a driver to compete in the factory team for the SRO Esports competitions in the Acura NSX GT3 Evo. So that means that everybody here is in an Acura NSX GT3 Evo, and that means that the field is all going to look the same. And the biggest discussion from earlier was about, well, if they're all in the same car, how do they have an advantage? It's all on the driver to make the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what was key in the Asia race. It was hard to pass. You had to make strategic decisions on where to pass, and it'll be more on driver skill as well as a bit of how they set the car up and how they can manage their tires. But it's definitely a different look to our normal esports broadcast, since everyone is in that Acura NSX GT3 Evo.
So having a look here again at the left-hand side of the screen, the timing and scoring that you can see, the car number in that third box to the right, that is essentially their seed number from their individual qualifying from earlier in the week. And essentially what this means is that the first car, which is Johannes Weiss in the number 1, he was the fastest in qualifying in a single car scenario, but 4th quick in the qualifying here for this 45-minute race. So the seating here a little bit more mixed up than we saw earlier in the Asia region race. The 3rd seed, Nicholas Hillebrand, is currently the pole sitter. Honor Rose in the number 5 will roll off in 2nd. And then Nico Ull in 3rd in the number 2 seed, Johannes Weiss in 4th, and Ben Kraner in the number 4 car rolls off 5th. And the rest of the field on the left-hand side of your screen. And you mentioned a lot of the names familiar from Assetto Corsa Competizione competition in league racing and beyond. But this is, SRO Esports is the ultimate league race. You're competing with people all across your region in the world, and on a very huge stage here on GT World.
Yeah, I'm going to see how all these competitors here racing on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and like you mentioned, there's so much great racing content on our YouTube GT World channel, and this is just another one where sim racing, these broadcasts are so realistic that sometimes you just can't tell that you're in game versus what's in reality. So it's exciting to add this to our channel, and I think this year we've got like 32 esports broadcasts planned across all of our GT World Challenge esports championships. So it's exciting to have much more racing content on GT World this year.
And one of the things I always say for those that are skeptical about esports competition in the racing world, racing is racing. Whether or not you're racing to the corner store on your bicycle, or whether or not you're racing in an esports environment here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, or you're a professional racing driver, it's all the same. And our initial championship with GT Rivals back at the beginning of 2020 had a mix of real-world drivers and sim racing drivers, and they all fit together like puzzle pieces. It was really cool to watch and really cool to see. Also, the announcement a couple months ago about SRO globally incorporating Assetto Corsa Competizione and Fanatec into a partnership that involves esports actually pertaining directly to team points. So that's a really cool initiative that is kicking off in, I believe, just the European series this year, but will expand to other regions in the future.
We already had one round at Monza, and what was interesting, the pole time from Monza in game versus the pole time for Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS, was only 0.2 different. So it's interesting to see the dynamics between virtual and reality, and how just close it actually was to its real life counterpart. So yeah, you expect to see more of those competitions pop up here on the European calendar, and we look to bring that real life component, or that virtual component, to our real life races in different regions next year.
One of the things I think is so amazing about Assetto Corsa Competizione is the sounds in the simulator. Graphics aside, physics aside, which are all very close and true to reality, the sounds really, really amaze me every time. Every time I load in to begin one of these broadcasts, it sounds like I'm standing at the racetrack, which is very, very neat. All right, so Nicholas Hillebrand in the number 3 is lining everybody up. Again, this is an open, free pace lap, so all the drivers have to line themselves up manually, which is not something that a lot of drivers are used to. They're used to having a little bit of a bug on the screen helping them out. But pacing and caution structure is part of real-world racing, and they're going to have to learn how to do it. So here they are. Now side by side through turn 15, the final corner on the racetrack. Hillebrand and Honor Rose on the front row, and 45 minutes for the European series, the European race this afternoon. Again, not about winning today. It's about evaluating drivers' competition skills. And winning would be nice, but it's all about how they get there. Green flag in the air, 45 minutes on the board. A frantic start down towards turn number 1. 3 wide in the middle for the race lead. Not quite. Nico Ull backs out of it. Bit of a cheeky block there by Hillebrand into the first corner. And here comes Honor Rose on the outside of the number 5. Backs out of a pass in turn number 2. That would have been a little bit too close for comfort, I think.
Yeah, she stacked up the P2 and beyond as well from that, just because she got on that curb pretty hard. But, you know, we know Honora from our GT World Challenge America competition, esports competition this past season. We know she's very capable of driving that Acura NSX GT3 Evo. And again, just right there on the rear bumper of P1, Mr. Hillebrand.
So a very clean start. I don't think anybody had an issue leaving the first sector or two. There's Johannes Weiss in the number 4, and up front, this is where it's going to get interesting. Honora Rose with this run on Hillebrand here, with this slipstream in the early moments of the race when everyone's bunched up. This is prime opportunity to grab a position, and Rose has a pretty sizable run. Looks over to driver's left. Hillebrand's going to leave her space, just enough of it. They're 3 wide behind them. This is getting really interesting. How can you do that? The 4 car up the middle, and 1 car runs wide, and it's getting real scrappy for the top spot. I think Rose backs out of it, runs wide. They all run wide at the front here.
Yeah, cold tires definitely playing a big factor in the start of this race, and catching people out. They're just being super aggressive, and you know, we can see them really just challenging each other here in the first few laps.
So Hillebrand out in front is going to lead the first lap, unless he makes a mistake here. Nico All in the number 2 right behind. This is the number 2 seed, a driver we'd expect to be in the top 3, and he already is there. Crosses over Honora Rose on exit at turn 15. Now the launch down the front straight. First lap is complete, and Hillebrand sets the pace out front. Now we saw the lead exchange a couple times in the Asia race earlier today, and every time it exchanged, there was a bump and a push associated with it, which is not obviously how you want to get it done. And I'm curious to see if this will go any differently, or if we'll still have some fender rubbing at the front of the field.
Yeah, here we go. Uhi looking at Honora Rose, trying to see if he could make a move. Can't make it happen, but they're nose to tail, and here into this last corner, which is really going to hurt the exit of Honora. Not the last corner, but the this lead onto the back straightaway here, which you need to get a good round out of to make sure you can stay flat through this segment and down this back straightaway. So we should see some slipstream effect come into play again. We'll see how many cars take advantage of the extra room on the road and take a track cut. But so far, Nicholas Hillebrand is out in front with a little less than a second lead over Honora Rose.
Johannes Weiss, Aiden Brow in the number 10. He's going to poke out a line in a very similarly liveried Acura NSX GT3 Evo. And some more side-by-side off here into turn number 10. They're going to get single filed out. Herb de Brecquelier is going to single himself back out as well, with Richard Schaefer in behind in the number 9. He's actually dropped down or gained a spot rather. It's Moritz Berzer in the number 11, who's running in 10th. That's the driver I was trying to focus on. Nice looking livery on this car. Some sort of maroon red with a little bit of cyan blue on it. Looks good. But up front, Hillebrand establishing a 1-second lead here early. That's the number 3 seed car. So if finishes where they were seated, he would drop 2 spots. Now what we saw in the Asia race earlier was that the seeds ended up sort of finishing where we expected them to, which was not what I expected to see. So right now they're sort of in reverse order in the top 5 at least.
Yeah, here comes Hillebrand, stretching his lead up to 1.3 seconds now ahead of Honora Rose. Honora's cleared the P3 and back, so she can take a look at trying to set some solid laps to try to catch back up to Hillebrand. But as we look back into P9, great battle here mid-pack. All these cars nose to tail, again, same machinery, so it's going to be really crucial on driver inputs and how they can get through this first few laps here and get the car up to temperature.
Yeah, so again, everyone's in Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Is a mid-engine twin turbocharged V6 platform that's found success all over the world in GT3 competition. And normally here in SRO Esports competition, you'd have a variety of cars: front-engine rear-wheel drive, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and rear-engine rear-wheel drive. But today, you don't have that. You're all in the same car, and it means you have to find advantages in a different way: slipstream and also driver ability. Here's Richard Schaefer on Josh McKean in the number 14. McKean's going to run a little bit wide, grab one of those bollards. We did see a couple drivers get track limits violations earlier. One car going for a slide. It's a 17 to Michael Stopp in turn number 10. Look out, there's one car almost getting in. He just got this car off a little bit balanced there and goes for a slide. Now, we saw this happen, or almost happen, in the Asia race earlier, and we talked about the balance of these mid-engine cars, and he's really having a tough time now and loops the car again. But with this mid-engine rear-wheel drive platform, Robbie, this car is set up to be a little bit looser than tight, because that's general driver preference. But if you're not able to hold on to it, you're going to have a pretty bad time.
Yeah, and usually if you have one spin, the tires are not in the best shape, so it can catch you out for a second or third spin. As we see a move down the inside into turn 1, can he make it stick? Looks like he can't, backs out of it. That was Josh McKean, or that was Schaefer looking at the back of Josh McKean's car here. But yeah, once you get out of rhythm, it's definitely hard to get back into concentration. So it's another attribute we're looking to evaluate our drivers with, to see how they can battle back from incidents they may have during the course of the race.
Very scrappy right now. Again, just under double the field size of the Asian race we had earlier today, and because of that, they're getting a lot more close battles just scattered throughout the field. So we're trying to keep our eye on all of them at the moment. There's Brackelier and Matzik behind in the number 12, and just behind Berzer in the number 11. This is all for about 9th spot on the racetrack. Here comes this big run again, and Matzik is choosing not to go defensive. Berzer's got to run. He's going to take a look here to the inside. Doesn't quite have overlap, and is going to back out. That was probably a smart move there.
Yeah, if he would have, even if Matzik left room on the inside, it still would have hurt both of their runs through that corner, and they'd start to lose touch with the cars in front of them. So I think, here from a driver strategy perspective, you need to see if you can make clean passes that will limit the amount of time you lose to the cars ahead of you, in order to kind of continue to pick cars off one by one.
Up front, I'm keeping my eye on the race lead because it is beginning to shrink. Nicholas Hillebrand out front, across the line this time, runs a 1:55.203. That was his best lap, but Honora Rose ran her best lap, a 1:54.987. That's 3/10 better. Look at the ground she makes up on the brakes through turn 1. Much better through that first corner, and closes the gap down to just 0.6 of a second. And we saw in the race earlier today that if you have a 0.6 of a second gap exiting turn number 7, you're pretty much set up for a pass into turn 10.
Yeah, she's definitely got the car where she likes it, and is starting to just click off some really clean laps. And here she is, like you said, right within that window to get that huge slipstream that you'll get down this back straightaway. So we'll see if she can take advantage of it going into turn 10.
And leaving sector 2 now, or leaving sector 1, I should say, onto the back straightaway. And the gap is still, I think it's a little bit more than 0.6 at this point. And not close enough to make a move, but this gap is going to come down to about 5 car lengths, I suspect, by the end of the straightaway. And as soon as we get to turn 10 here and see that that's not going to swap, we're going to head back to 7th place with Josh McKean and Richard Schaefer. They've been running nose to tail since the drop of the green flag, and Schaefer was in the slipstream there but didn't really gain all that much ground, and that's partially due to the exit of turn 7. Again, we mentioned that exiting turn 7 is crucial. The slipstream is not a free pass. You don't just get to follow someone and all of a sudden you get to turbo by somebody. You still have to exit turn 7 very cleanly to get that big run, and I don't think Schaefer did that last time by, so didn't really take advantage of it. And for third, Ben Craner, and Nico Ull are got nose to tail, and Ull fell back. He was at second at one point and has slipped back to 4th.
Yeah, as they come on, you could just see, look down the field, they're all very close still together, and we're 4 or 5 laps into this race. So the speed differential between all of these competitors is very little. It's all about now track position, and if you lost ground on the start, it's going to be very hard to make that up to get to the front. But luckily for all of these competitors, again, we're not looking for where they finish, but we're looking to just see how they perform, and taking into account their passing abilities, their strategies, everything like that, to evaluate them as good drivers for this HPD factory program.
Well, All's career, at least in real-world racing, began in karts, and looking at a lot of racing programs across the world, racing begins in karts for so many people. I got the opportunity to announce for the Skip Barber Racing Series a couple weeks ago at Circuit of the Americas, and you look at the entry list, 3/4 of the people on it began their racing career in karts before moving into small open wheelers. So a great opportunity, and especially in Europe, where the karting program is so fleshed out, it's a really good start to get in your racing career, not just in the sim racing world, which we've established is a pretty good place to begin, especially if you're on a budget. But karting is, I think, the place to really begin things. Look at this for third, a touch and a spin maybe by the 2 car. No, he gathers it back up. That was an attack on Ben Craner, and got a little bit too aggressive there and made a bit of contact. Let's have a look at that and see how that formulated again. Here's a look as they headed into turn 10. All has this big run coming. Steps out of line just as a distraction on Craner. And then as they head into turn number 11 here, he still has this big run. Then he just sort of makes this dive here in the middle of turn 11. And Robbie, there's room there, but probably not worth grabbing that spot for.
Yeah, the car's, off balance there. It's very tight. You're looking to try to just keep the car from sliding, and really not necessarily aggressive move, but more so he saw some gap and was trying to find if he could maybe sneak under the other car there, but just didn't have enough to do it. And luckily that little love tap didn't send both of them spinning. So no harm, no foul at the moment, and they can continue on.
Our number 7 seed, DeBrackelier's had an issue. He drops down to 11th. So he was obviously a little bit off pace, lost about 6 seconds last time around. Keeping my eye on the front too, because Honor Rose is within a half a second here exiting onto the back straightaway. And we've seen that a half a second is all you should need to get a run to take the lead away. But Hillebrand's been so good leaving turn 7 that the opportunity really hasn't been there. I think you got to be even closer for this round just because of how good Nicholas is leaving the previous corner.
Yeah, and you could imagine, obviously these drivers are well versed in the tweaks you can make to the setup. He might be running a lower trim, less downforce than Honora is, and is just able to keep his car out in front by that significant of a gap to avoid getting slipstreamed by on that straightaway. And maybe Honora chose a more, a higher downforce setup. So that's why she's a bit quicker through the tighter bits here, but we'll be interested to see if she can get maybe a little closer, if that slipstream will be a bit more effective for her in the coming laps.
I'm curious to see if once Honora gets out front, if the downforce will be a detriment, especially on the back straightaway. But you can see, I think you're right, Robbie. I think the downforce level that Honora Rose has is significantly more than Hillebrand, because you can see in the corners how much ground she makes up. And then you hit the straightaway, and it's like she's dragging a boat anchor in comparison to the 3 car. So Hillebrand certainly running a lower downforce setup there. It looks like, is there a little bit of traffic up the road here potentially? Yes, there is. Might be the number 16 of Florian Ritter, who's currently scored last. And who I believe is either hit pit lane once or has had an issue, because there he is.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if they can navigate. Oh, and he does the nice thing and just moves out of the way. So that's always a pleasant sight to see when you're coming up in the lap with the car.
Whoa, a little bit loose there, getting off course, trying to get out of the way for the rest of the drivers behind. But you can see them all filtering through now. And yes, that is definitely the gentlemanly thing to do. We're 15 minutes into this race, and it's just getting hot here at the front. But again, this is where Honora Rose should close, based on what we saw in the previous race of the day for the Asia region. But now Hillebrand has set himself up with so little downforce that he's able to keep this gap fairly constant. It's closing a little bit now, and the draft will increase its strength the closer Rose can get. And you can see a little bit more gain this time than she did last lap due to that gap being slightly smaller.
Yeah, as they're coming through the turn 11 segment here. Sorry, it's early for me. We definitely, you can see that she's better on the brakes. She's better mid corner. So that leads me to believe she has slightly higher aero set up in her car. But again, that big long straightaway is just so massive that if he can keep his car out in front and just keep her behind in the tighter segments here, he's in pretty decent shape.
And even if Rose passes Hillebrand in sector 1, you've got the entire straightaway sector 2 to basically repass. So I think Hillebrand's in pretty good shape as long as he doesn't make a major mistake. Going back, Richard Schaefer, and I believe that's the 10 of Aiden Brow that he's just passed. This is a great battle for 6th place down here into the first corner. And nose to tail, these two chasing each other. Seeds 9 and 10 running 6 and 7, so sort of outperforming their expectation early in the race.
Definitely, it looks like they're teammates with the same livery there from the Butler Powell Motorsport Camp, and I know Renee from a few esports projects we've done way back when. But they're looking strong and making their way up the field, and we'll see if they can catch the P4 and 5 competitors that are just right up the road from them.
A handful of those drivers out there. We've seen about 5 or 6 of those liveries, so they definitely have a stranglehold, at least in the livery department of this race. Back up to 4th place, keeping an eye on Nico Ull and Johannes Weiss, another one of those Butler Powell Motorsport cars. That is only a couple tenths of a second down to 3 car lengths. And look at the speed that Nico carries off into the corner. So much downforce in this Acura NSX GT3 Evo that he just hauls through their top of 5th gear, probably. Maybe even 6th through that part of the racetrack. Really impressive performance levels of this Acura NSX GT3 to just carry that much speed through a corner.
Yeah, the car's well balanced. It's got some great strengths, and mid corner speed is definitely one of its attributes. And so you can see just they're hauling the mail through turn 10 and just letting the car have even just a slight bit of movement with the rear end just to help get the car turned, but all very comfortable for the driver. And they're making great lap times here. And again, look at the field; they're all still fairly bunched up pretty close together, which is making for some great racing as well.
And again, in Assetto Corsa Competizione, they've captured this Acura NSX GT3 Evo perfectly. Now, one of my good friends, Tom O'Gorman, who couldn't be here today because of a prior commitment, he raced for HPD in Pirelli World Challenge and spent some time in IMSA as well in the Honda Civic Type R TCR car. He got a chance to test drive one of these Acura NSX GT3 Evos a couple of years ago in Texas, and he drove the car here in the simulator and said, yeah, it's pretty much exactly like it was. And he said especially the sound was identical to what he drove, even if it was for a short time. So it really is a testament to how accurate the simulator is, that someone can jump straight from the real car into the simulator and say, yep, that's pretty much how it drives, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Kunos team have done an amazing job replicating our GT World Challenge Championship down to every single detail in the car. Like, you can look inside the cockpit here, and if you were to take a peek inside the Acura NSX GT3 Evo, it'd be a carbon copy of what you see in real life. So it's really cool. And I've spent some time driving ACC now too for the past year, and the characteristics of driving these cars really mimic the real life component. And we do see a drive-through, Kyle, so that's interesting, probably for track limits.
Yeah, it's Nico Ull that got that drive-through, and not sure what for, but I would suspect track limits. We had a discussion about this in the earlier broadcast, Robbie, about the track limits here. It's easy to exceed them because there's just so much pavement, and it's tempting to run wide, but you have to stay within the inner white lines plus the curb, and Nico Ull's going to come down and serve that. Again, I mentioned earlier that outside of the white lines here, see all that striped paint, the red and blue striping, that's not just painted pavement, and it's basically really rough pavement that is designed to add extra grip and also wear out tires to sort of deter any advantage you would get from running off course. Now, the whole idea of that is that this is actually a test track, so that's why it exists like that instead of being grass or gravel or something of the sort. But it definitely dissuades you from running off course, but not enough for Nico Ull. He will have to come down and serve that drive-through, and we'll tumble down the order. No changes up at the front here. We're still kind of separated out. Honor Rose unable to close that gap. And keeping an eye out, we had a little bit of separation in this field, more so than we had in the race earlier today, about 2 seconds between each driver. 1 second is the smallest gap we have between Moritz Berzer and Philip Matzik. I'm a little bit surprised by this, to be honest. I thought that we'd see drivers closer together in terms of the slipstream, especially at this point in the race, but I think we're getting to the point now where the tire wear is going to start factoring in. The fuel is going to burn off. The car is going to handle a little bit differently, and we should see some battles start to formulate.
Yeah, and again, once the race started, there was a bit of stack up in several parts of the circuit on that first opening lap, so it kind of helps in that separation phase. But now we do see a side-by-side battle going into turn 10, so we'll see how that plays out here as we've got Dominic Klar looking to make a move.
It's Nico Ull that's trying to drive back through the field after getting that drive-through penalty. Falls back to 12th. And we know his pace is about 4th quick. So he's got a lot of work to do. And there's a big dive under Dominic Klar, who's actually just going to leave him the space. Tried to turn back in, though, and kind of got knocked off course. But move Ull back to 11th. And Klar back to 12th. We've seen the elbows come out a couple times today, Robbie, but again, positions are not what matters. The drivers today are being evaluated for their racecraft and competition performance, and performance not necessarily meaning their finishing position. Every driver here is being evaluated via telemetry as well post-race, so that their braking points and acceleration points and turning angle and all that can be evaluated to see really who is the smoothest, cleanest, and fastest of the group.
Exactly, Kyle. And we look back at the leaders here. Honor Rose is within 6/10. She's been pretty much hovering in that vicinity for the entire race now, and just trying to see, maybe she's just buying her time, keeping the tires under, keeping her car fresh for the end of this race. But that gap has been essentially the same since the first few opening laps, and hasn't been able to really make any big impact in moving closer to the back of Hildebrand.
And again, this is really a sort of a multi-step qualification process. Again, everybody is racing for a spot on the factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo team for the SRO Esports programs in 2021. Now, they've already done that single car qualifier, which has seated them based on their car number is based on their seat, I should say. Then they have this race, and then they have a marketing component of sorts. Robbie, can you elaborate a little bit on what that means? Because being a race car driver for a factory team is not always about just your performance on the racetrack and just your capabilities behind the wheel. It's also about who you are and your personality, too.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you're representing a significantly large brand in Acura and Honda itself. And Honda Performance Development being the motorsports arm of those entities, and really the drivers of obviously the GT3 program, the TCR program, the IndyCar program even. So it goes beyond much more of what you're capable of doing out on the racetrack. You have to be presentable and marketable, if you will, and just be a good spokesperson, brand ambassador for the company. So the panel will be looking into that as well to make their final choices here for the HPD JAS Pro Team. And so it's all encompassing what you can do on the track, what you can do off the track. And they're really looking to find strong candidates that will represent the brand and this new program, this Esports Academy, which is just in its inaugural year. And we will hopefully have, and actually we know we'll have more of these in the near future. Every year we'll be doing the HPD Esports Academy here now from this particular season. So it's exciting to just help and work with a brand that's going all in on esports.
It's a really cool initiative that's being taken here. Honor Rose closing in this time through the latter half of the racetrack. Now, Honor, just like Mia Rose earlier in the day, Honor has competed in the GT World Challenge America Esports program here in North America earlier this year in the GT4 category. And just like Mia, has really transitioned nicely from the GT3, or excuse me, the GT4 into the GT3 car. They're pretty different in terms of downforce level and overall pace, but it seems like the drivers that have a real good grip on esports in general here in Assetto Corsa Competizione can make that transition pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, a lot of these sim racers, of course, are probably racing on multiple platforms, but they've spent some time here in ACC, and some are relatively new, and they're just jumping in and learning. And, you know, a lot of the comments that we've seen from the participants here in the HPD JAS Esports Academy has just been that, you know, especially the qualifying format, we went with a hot stint instead of a hot lap, you know, because we really wanted to see people's pace rather than just like what they can do in a one lap scenario, as we see a huge wiggle from Hillebrand, as he's now under very a huge amount of pressure from Honora Rose going down to the back straight, and she's now within 0.3 of a second. So I think we can finally see what that slipstream will do for her.
Here she comes with a big run to the inside, chooses drivers right, now back to the left. And now are they going to run side by side here off into turn 10? That's going to be really risky. We've seen that end in tears already once or twice today. But nope, backs out. Hillebrand runs wide. Honora Rose chases him to driver's right, gives him a real poor entry to turn number 11. The door opens. We've seen this also end poorly, but Rose backs out and thinks better of it. I like that. That shows restraint. Again, we've got 18 minutes left in this race. But, you know, that's a long time, but also not that long. So you have to think about, you know, am I going to get that opportunity again? Because if you're not, you might as well go for it. But I think there's enough time left in this race that it's not that critical or crucial.
Yeah, I think she definitely showed restraint and made the right decision. You know, as you can see now, Hillebrand is, you know, maybe having some tire deg come into play and a bit off apex as he went around that last turn there. So she's within striking distance. She's right where she wants to be, and to be able to challenge for the lead. And plus the big thing too is, you know, I think what maybe going through Honora's mind is, how do I get by Hillebrand efficiently so that they both of them don't get drawn back into Craner, who's not that far behind.
This is just like watching the hunter and the hunted right now, with Hillebrand being the hunted, and definitely feeling the pressure there as Rose is filling the mirrors. Keep an eye just behind as well. Ben Craner in the black Acura NSX GT3 Evo in the background lurking. And we almost saw the third place driver win the race in the Asia region race earlier today. So I would certainly not be dissuaded, if I was Ben Craner, to keep this gap as close as possible, especially as these two battle for the race lead door to door, almost touching down the back straightaway here.
Yeah, wow, what close battles. You know, Hillebrand went to defend, moves over on Honora, but Honora's going to try the outside, and we saw this in the earlier round, leaves enough room for both of them, but can't make it happen. But she's just right there, right on that rear bumper, which is awesome.
Tried but did not succeed. And Ben Craner used that opportunity to close the gap even further. Now it's only about 15 car lengths, now 10 as we enter turn number 12. I think Honora Rose is definitely quicker. Last time by was a 1/10.5 better than Nicholas Hillebrand in the number 3. And Nicholas started doing real life auto slalom at age 12 and drove a national level competition and got top 10 positions in it. Started sim racing about 5 years ago. So also, you know, 5 years, I guess, what year was that? That would have been 2016 or so. That's actually fairly recent. So Hillebrand already showing a lot of prowess in a relatively new skill.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about sim racing, this could be the new gateway for folks to get into professional motorsports as well. So, you know, not only just racing in the virtual world, but seeing if they can get into the real life motorsports community and race, whether it be touring cars or GT cars, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how, you know, obviously here at SRO, we've adopted esports and really are big, have created a program around it that has made it a big part of our championships. And, you know, we'll likely see other brands and partners of ours really double down on esports to just open up their communities to see if they can attract new customers to their programs.
Down the back straightaway, Rose again closing in and maybe just trying to be a distraction. We've seen this tactic a lot out of professional race car drivers, where if you're following the driver in front, you step out of line just to get out of the mirrors of the driver in front, and that will be a distraction enough perhaps to make them make a mistake. Now, Hillebrand didn't bite, stayed on line and focused on racing the racetrack, and that is what has kept him out front. But this black number 4 car is closing in even quicker than I was anticipating. And that gap has come way down. You see him balancing the car on throttle with 14 minutes to go. This is certainly a potential. Again, in the race we saw earlier today, the top 2 tangled, and we have not seen these drivers side by side for a long time yet, so the potential for calamity is there, and Craner is going to be right there to pick up the scraps as soon as they get together.
Yeah, the battle between our leaders has definitely drawn them backwards into Craner, and he's ready to pounce as well and take advantage of any mistakes that the 2 cars ahead of him might have. So he's put himself in great position as Rose and Hillebrand are basically glued to each other's rear bumper and slowing each other down.
No other battles to warn you of at the moment. Everyone sort of found their own room on the racetrack except for the front 3. It is accordioning back together here with 13 minutes to go in the HPD JAS Academy to select drivers for the factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo team for SRO Esports competition in 2021. And while the front has been pretty quiet so far today, it's about to get real loud as we get down towards the last 10 minutes. And Honora Rose is realizing, perhaps looking out her mirror, that Ben Craner is getting even closer. It's really just between these front 3. There's no other threat unless they really have a crash, but I would be certainly concerned about the 4 if I was any of the front 2.
Definitely. He's closing in, he's right there, and I know they can feel his presence now. And I think that's why you don't see Honora on attack mode quite at the moment. I think they're trying to see if they, maybe she's working a little bit with Hillebrand here to try to see if they can get a gap, because it makes it much more difficult for a driver to apply pressure when being pressured as well. There's just a lot of things going on in the race car at that point in time. So, I think we'll see Rose try to push Hillebrand here to just knock out some solid laps, get a gap between them and Craner, and then duke it out here for the final few laps.
Across the line now with 12 minutes to go. The quickest of the front 3 that time by was actually Hillebrand, so they are actually picking up pace again now that they're not having the distraction of racing each other. And Craner was about the 2nd quickest. No, he was actually the 3rd quickest of the front 3, so lost a little bit of ground. But the front 2 are the closest battle on the racetrack, and Hillebrand has been inch perfect so far, has not made a single mistake. And that's all you can ask. I mean, if someone outraces you, they outrace you, Robbie, but there's a lot of opportunities to make mistake around here. And, you would be forgiven for messing up once or twice or having a slip up, but Hillebrand has not done that yet.
Yeah, he's definitely showing composure at being up front. That's always, it's a great position to be in, but also you're, probably the most nerve-wracking just because you're under pressure the entire time, especially when you have a driver like Honora Rose just right there on your rear bumper for pretty much the entire race. So pressure the entire 45 minutes is tough, and we'll see if he can hold on here in the last 10 minutes of this race. But it's been a great battle, and like you said, he hasn't really put a wheel wrong and just been driving consistent and solid throughout this stint.
So the consistency-wise, we talked about this earlier, about 4/10 between the fastest lap that these drivers have run and the current laps that they're running on pace. Now, we discussed about tire wear and tire strategy, and also about how the cars will burn fuel over the course of the run and sort of shift the balance around. And it seems like the drivers at the front have also managed to save their tires the best. You'd think they'd be going faster, they're burning their stuff up. Well, they also have less slip angle, and they're sort of beating up the tires less by driving smoother, and that seems to be the factor up here at the front. As the drivers in the mid-pack and towards the back tend to be a little bit more aggressive to try to make up ground, and they end up sort of burning stuff up a bit more. So with 10 minutes to go now, they cross turn number 1. And Honora Rose might be feeling a little bit less pressure out the back now as they continue to put distance on Ben Craner. So they're faster when they're not racing each other, Robbie, but at some point Rose is going to want to get by Hillebrand, and that means that the time is limited, that she's got to get the pass done before that 4-car reels him back in.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, you know, we suspect that they're on different aerodynamic setups, so she could just be looking at this at, you know, let me just hang here, be in second position, I'm within striking distance. We've built this gap from P3, which is now not an issue for them, and you know, look to maybe just make a move in the closing lap, so that way she has a higher probability of keeping Hillebrand behind with his low downforce setup.
Pops that a line into turn 10. Big curb usage there by Hillebrand. But again, the curbs around Paul Ricard, they're, you know, the red and white ones are fairly flat, and actually if you could get a closer look at them, right here you can see there's actually 2 stages of curbing. There's one stage that's sort of raised up off the ground, and the rest of it's just sort of flat concrete. There's no real profile to it. So while it looks very wide, the actual rumble strip part of it is fairly narrow, so you can actually hop over that first part, and then you've just got bare concrete, which is a lot smoother to drive on and won't upset the car so much. So as a driver, you sort of want to straddle that first stage of raised curbing to get the most out of the racetrack.
Yeah, you're definitely trying to test how much curb you can use, you know, what is actually useful, because sometimes going over the curbs isn't really save or gaining you any time advantage, but you know, you're definitely want to test that out, and then also just know where the track limit cuts kind of come into play, especially here in Assetto Corsa Competizione. So in qualifying or in practice, you know, you'll see drivers kind of testing the limits of where they can get those race cars to understand, you know, how far off they can go across those lines.
So still the front 2, the closest battle on the racetrack at the moment. There is another one forming between Berzer and Natzik in 6th place, but they've been like this for most of the race, so not as volatile as the one up front, I would imagine. And Honora Rose onto the back straightaway again. And this is the deficit about the you know, the setup situation, and this is why, again, the positions aren't really what's at stake here. You're more concerned about their performance and the telemetry, because looking at the telemetry, you'll know about the downforce differences when you're evaluating these drivers. You'll know that Honora Rose has a disadvantage here on the straightaway, so that's not really the concern. But how Honora Rose makes up for that lack of straightaway speed, that's really what's at stake here, and how she goes about getting the race lead away, if that's at all possible. So, you know, all is not lost if you don't win this race. It's just about evaluating drivers' skill, consistency, and racecraft, and that's what everyone is taking a look at here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to judge Hillebrand on being able to run a slightly lower downforce setup and keeping the car underneath him for 45 minutes. You know, I think that's an interesting take too as well, because it's, you know, much more difficult to manage a car with lower downforce. You usually tend to use more tires at that point too as well, so we'll see if these final 6 minutes become a bit different for him based on tire deg and his particular setup versus what Honora has.
6 minutes to go now, the last couple laps beginning. Checking back in on a couple drivers we mentioned earlier. Nico Ull, after that drive-through penalty, has only made it back up to 10th after violating track limits. Now, it's got to be frustrating for him because he was running up inside the top 5, but his recovery drive has been commendable, but he's now only a couple seconds back from De Bracquelier up the road in 9th. It's just still got to be very frustrating because he probably could have had a chance for a podium, but now is sort of just scraping back what little he can get.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, you know, the highs and lows of racing, right? You know, he was a high qualifier, as you can see from his number 2 plate on his car, but unfortunately some incidents have put him back, and, you know, a couple four track cuts has given him that drive-through penalty, and he's now just working his way back up into the top 10, which at least he salvaged a few spots based on where he came back out of the pits after his drive-through.
Well, I see about a 10th of a gap between the two front runners. Honora Rose, the closest she has been going into this third and final sector. And again, Hillebrand driving very well defensively and has not made a mistake. We've still been watching almost every lap that he's made, and he has not cracked under this pressure just yet. But with under 5 minutes to go, that pressure is going to continue to mount. And they've put a gap on the third place car, which means Honor Rose is going to feel a lot more comfortable pushing the issue here.
Yeah, now it's the time. And, you know, she has to get it done here within the next few laps, I think, to have a shot. So I think you'll see her start to attack more and take a look at where, you know, she knows her car's a bit stronger to see if she can put a nose in and maybe draw Hillebrand offline slightly and take advantage of getting by. But, you know, she's now officially running out of time and has to see if she can make her way by here in the next few laps.
That time 2/10 quicker than Hillebrand out front. 3.5 tenths separate them through the first sector. The closest she has been in this portion of the racetrack. And Ben Craner about 2.5 seconds back from this fight. Again, he's just hoping that they tangle like what happened in the race earlier this afternoon. And I guess it was afternoon for Europe. It is very early for you on the west coast of the U.S. Sort of late morning for me here in the central portion of the U.S., but truly a global offering this afternoon for the HPD JAS Academy. This is, you know, we're doing events in Asia and Europe and in North America all the same day within a couple hours of each other, which is really neat. But here comes a Rose again, but just not enough of a run here. That this straightaway is really the Achilles heel of that number 5 car today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to talk to her afterwards and see what, you know, her setup actually was, if our speculation here is correct. But yeah, give Hillebrand all the credit so far. He's drove an amazing race, clean race, and hasn't really put a wheel wrong. Obviously, started from the 3rd position, so he gained 2 spots to get into the lead. But yeah, he's looking pretty solid.
This time through, again, we'll get the white flag if there is under 1 minute and 56 seconds remaining, which means that this time by will be 2 laps to go. And this race, again, has been more spread out than the Asia race earlier today. And Hillebrand and Rose have really been the stars of the show. But keep an eye on Ben Craner. Last time by, he was quicker than Honor Rose, a little bit off pace from Hillebrand. But the gap is down to 2.3 between Craner and Rose, so there's there's still the potential for him to get back up into the fight.
Yeah, and you saw Hillebrand take a bit of curb there, and the car got just slightly out of sorts. So you know, as the closing minutes happen here, taking a little bit more risk, and that could still upset the car and create opportunity for Honora. But they're, you know, again, 6/10 back going into this long straightaway, so we'll see if that helps pull her back in within a couple more tenths, and if she can make something happen on the last sector of the track.
It's very clear to me now, going back to the race we saw earlier today, all you needed was about 7 or 8 tenths of a second, and you could be on the bumper or alongside the race leader by the time you'd get there. Today, it seems like 6 tenths is even close for Rose. She's got to be within 2 or 3 tenths to really have a legitimate shot, and that's the difference in setup. She's exiting turn 7 just as effectively as Hillebrand, but just can't carry as much speed by the end of the straight, even in the slipstream. So 1 minute and 10 seconds left. The next time by will be white flag. And again, you're watching the best battle on the racetrack, and it's for the lead, conveniently enough. And all competing for a spot on the factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo team in the SRO Esports competitions in 2021. Globally, in Asia, in Europe, and in North America. This is the 2nd of 3 races today. And the North American region race will be coming up right after this. White flag for Nicholas Hillebrand. We'll see if he can go and get it and win this race with Honor Rose following in tow.
Yeah, he's actually stretched his lead slightly, almost to a second. So he's, you know, gained some pace here in the final closing lap to just try to give himself a nice gap and finish this race strong. But yeah, I mean, he's got everything go.
There's a mistake and a big corner cut for Hillebrand. The one mistake that he's made all day on the final lap, just drilled a curb, and that's what cost him. Here's another look at it. Hits one of those yellow anti-cut curbs, Robbie, and had to cut the corner. That's a huge deficit to what was otherwise an almost perfect race, and that just goes to show you it's not over till it's over. But Rose has a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, the problems for our leader, like you were mentioning earlier. Ben Craner might be in a perfect position here to gain a position post-race, but I would assume Honora had a few too many track cuts and got that drive-through penalty. And Hillebrand, taking that curb and kind of flying himself off. Luckily, he didn't have, the max amount of track cuts that you could take before you get a penalty. Otherwise, he would have probably seen a drive-through as well.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Honora Rose, who is having such a good performance, a podium performance, and will likely lose that spot here coming back to the checkers. Here's a battle for 9th. DeBracolier in the number 7. That's the car out front. Nico All fighting back from his own drive-through earlier in the race. And I'm going to suspect that he'll have a good run here off into turn 10. And I don't think DeBracolier is even going to fight this. He's going to leave the inside lane open. Or maybe he just wants to rim ride here through turn number 10. But either way, door to door, and All is through. That was a close moment. But he's back to the top spot, or back to 9th place, I should say. Meanwhile, at the top spot, Nicholas Hillebrand comes on through. Checkered flag, no dramas other than that course cut a lap ago. But he gets it done and wins the HPD JAS Academy race here at Paul Ricard for the European region. Gets it done. Honora Rose finishes unofficially in 2nd with a plus 30-second penalty. Is going to drop her down the order. That is heartbreak for Rose. But again, in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't matter all that much. Again, we're evaluating drivers based on their performance in racecraft, not so much about a track limits penalty that happened on the last lap of the race.
Yeah, Kyle, I think this was an extremely clean race. Everyone raced each other very hard, but left each other room. And like you mentioned, we're definitely evaluating the overall race itself, and especially here at a track like Paul Ricard, track cuts are easily received, and it just takes that one slight miscue to get an extra one, and unfortunately for Honora, she grabbed that. But strong race from all of our top 3, and as well as all the competitors in the European server here. So it leaves a lot of potential drivers for the HPD JAS Esports team for the Europe region.
Well, it looks like a photo op there for the Butler Powell Motorsport team as they head onto the back straightaway. There is the race results for the European region race. And we're going to step away for a few moments before we head into the North American region race that will finish off today's broadcast. Again, I'm Kyle Heyer with Robbie Montanola. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes for the American race. If you've ever wanted to be a factory race team driver, the road can be tough. Racing can be expensive and requires connections, circumstances, and even a little bit of luck. But that doesn't mean you'll never get the chance to be a factory Honda or Acura driver. Through SRO Esports, the Honda JAS Esports Academy is selecting drivers for their factory team in the 2021 SRO Esports Championships. But first, we have to select them based on a number of factors. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to GT World. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Robbie Montanola. We've already had the Asian region race this morning, as followed up by the European region race. We'll have one more with the North American region to essentially evaluate a field of drivers based on their performance, their racecraft, and other factors, including their raw pace, to select them to be a factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo eSport driver for the 2021 SRO Esports season. And Robbie, we've seen some great racing so far today, but only one more race left to do, and it's our biggest and most packed field that we've had all morning.
Yeah, we saw great reception from our North American racers here for this competition, and we'll see our largest grid of the 3 races, which is awesome. And yeah, we're really excited. I think the team at HPD and JAS, as well as our partner Skip Barber, we're really excited to embark in this endeavor to look for sim racers to join the factory team for HPD and drive the Acura NSX GT3 Evo. I think it's an evolution of what the sim racing platform, and especially Assetto Corsa Competizione, has provided sim racers to become in this pro ranks and drive against the best in the world. So here we are. We're at Circuit Paul Ricard, and we're looking to evaluate these drivers on how well they can navigate this 45-minute race, and we'll hopefully be able to choose some drivers to join the team.
And you mentioned Circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, France. 5.8 kilometers, 15 corners around here, and the big topic of discussion, at least in the Asia region race earlier today, was the transition from Sector 1, or Sector 2 rather, into Sector 3, the red to white, turn number 10. That's been the best passing opportunity because of the long slipstream, I've struggled with that today, slipstream zone into turn 10. But it didn't appear to be as much of a factor in the European race, partially because I think a lot of the drivers running more trimmed out setups for more straightaway speed rather than downforce, which means that there wasn't that much drag to slow cars down on the straightaways and offer that big slipstream zone. So I wonder how this is going to be. We expected the European race to be a bit more wild. It was actually the tamer of the two. But now we've got the biggest field. I wonder if it would be the tamest or if it would be the craziest with as many cars as we have, 22.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see what setups, and that's a big part of a driver's performance is understanding how to set the car up for the circuit for their driving style. So it'll be great to just kind of get a sense of where these people are at after a few laps and just see how much toe they can get down the back straightaway as we begin this formation lap.
So formation lap is beginning here, again, a 45-minute race. And just to be clear once more, these drivers are not being evaluated just on their finishing position today. It's on a number of factors, including their overall pace, their racecraft, their decision-making skills, as well as just keeping the car on the black stuff, and also their just general competition performance. So they've also had a qualifier that led into this, and they're also going to have some sort of marketing check in a little bit later after this to see what drivers of the ones that have been selected are the best fit for Honda and Acura to represent them in the 2021 SRO Esports season. It's the full deal here, Robbie. This is the same sort of thing that you'd go through if you were going to be a factory driver in the real world racing level, except this time with the slightly cheaper medium of Assetto Corsa Competizione, offering a bit more of a level playing field.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper per se. I guess these sim rigs and with the monitor setups and the PCs that you need to power Assetto Corsa Competizione, they still get pretty expensive, but in the grand scheme of racing, it's definitely still a very cost-effective way to go racing, and we've seen some amazing racing over the past year within ACC in all of our esports championships that we've put on across the world, and there's a lot of familiar names in this grid just because they ran with us in GT World Challenge America esports competition, but so it'll be a fun race to watch, and we'll see how the drivers come out.
And again, every driver here is in an Acura NSX GT3 Evo, a twin turbocharged V6 power plant and a mid-engine rear-wheel drive platform. This is, again, a departure for some. This is sort of spec racing in a sense. You can set up your car however you'd like, but everyone's in the same car. Typically in GT3 racing, you have a variety of engine types and downforce levels and engine torque levels and all these different factors that play into how the cars race, and you can take advantage of your car's advantage over somebody else's. Here today, it's all the driver that makes the difference, and in that sense, it's a very pure way to check drivers' abilities, especially in racecraft scenarios when the only difference that they can have is in the setup.
Yep, that's right, Kyle. It'll be very interesting to see, you know, with this large of a field. You know, again, a lot of the qualifying times were very close, especially within the top 10 in the qualifying stint servers. And you look at the car numbers that each driver has been assigned, that's been based on where they finished in the qualifying server. So, you know, Cardin Liu here was the 4th fastest, yet he sits on pole. So we'll see how he can start this race.
And just like the common theme that we've seen so far today is that a lot of these drivers are new to sim racing. Cardin Liu started sim racing halfway through 2019, so he's very new to the esports world and already performing very, very well. The 2nd seed, William Hendrickson, he has done some arrive and drive karting in the past year and has taken part in Lucas Oil's basic racing school at Sebring. It is very cool, in fact, and it will take part of their advanced racing school this year. So some different levels of experience here at the front in the esports and real-world racing careers. But as we come out of turn number 15, 45 minutes up on the clock, and it's time to go racing one final time here today in the HPD JAS Academy to select a factory driver for the SRO Esports teams across the world for the 2021 championships. Green flag flies. We're racing in the North American region as they storm down to turn number 1, 3 wide mid-pack, and Cardin Liu jumps over to driver's right as William Hendrickson leads the way into turn number 1, but now they're side by side. The 4 car pulls ahead and retakes the lead, but here comes the 2 back up the inside for turn number 3.
Yeah, great start once again. Very clean for at least for what we can see. A lot of side-by-side action as they're gonna get into each other just slightly, and that opens the door for Zach Patterson to get by and take the lead.
Yeah, he's got it. Zach Patterson to the top spot. Didn't start up front, but now he's got the position as we head through the end of Sector 1 and into Sector 2 here. So Cardin Liu and William Hendrickson battling amongst themselves have given up the lead to somebody else. Now this happened in the Asia region race earlier today on the final lap, except the 3rd place car couldn't quite get to the race lead. He got to 2nd though, so waiting for mistakes is always a good choice to kind of squeeze your way on through. Josh Staffen, who is very familiar with the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform and very successful as the number 3 seed, he's right behind the number 4 here as we head into turn number 10 and has Hendrickson to the inside of the number 2, and Simon Fisher, who we've seen before, I believe in the GT4 class in the G2 World Challenge America Esports competition last year. Here he comes up to 4th past Staffen.
Yeah, and you can just see just that slight, miscue, obviously going side by side through turn 10, left Staffen very vulnerable, so he got passed by a couple cars, so he'll need to just put his head down and take a look and see if he can reclaim some of those spots that, where he get back up to where he started. But, another, fairly clean start here to the race. Lots of action. All the cars are packed up, which is nice to see. And we'll just continue to watch how they progress here in this 45-minute race.
Here's Mia Swenson for Vivi Race in the number 13 car in 14th place. She's had a pretty decent start. Max Baumann to the outside of the number 20. I've seen him in the Spec MX5 Championship over at iRacing, so good to see Max Baumann trying out Assetto Corsa Competizione and finding some success there already. Zach Patterson leads the first lap, Cardin Liu 2nd, Hendrickson 3rd, and Fisher, Staffen, Canapan, who is our top seed, who is running back in 6th right now, so maybe off to a slow start, but again, maybe having the bigger picture in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Again, for long race, I think, you know, with how close the lap times are, you don't want to get too far behind, but I think you can, you know, be safe in these opening laps just to make sure that your car's in one piece and you know where, you know, you can start to attack and move up. But everyone gone through the first few laps now. Tires should be up to temperature to at least a certain degree, and they can now start to attack and pass the cars in front of them.
And some battling behind. There's Alu Gobi I think that's the blue car. Yes, the number 9 seed. She's had a really good start. Gets by Ryan Woodrow in the number 12. Or is that Emil Carpentier? Yes, it was the number 15. That's the car that Gobi just got by, and it's a pretty good train of cars from 8th on back here. Joseph Kostovich, who we've seen before, Brandon Oulet we've seen before, and Max Baumann, who I just mentioned. And up front, though, Cardin Liu, this top 5 is on top of each other right now. We saw in both of the events that we've had so far that the top 3 would sort of group up. We've got 5, 6, or 7 cars all in this front group here in the first couple laps.
Yeah, and again, going back to their qualifying stint speed, Zach Patterson was 7th overall. So it'll be interesting to see what type of pace he can put out in this race to keep Liu, Hendrickson, Fisher, Staffen, Canopin, all of them who placed a bit higher than him on the qualifying side of things, and see if he can, you know, keep these cars behind him.
And you know, just like in, you know, the track or cross country or something, your seed is essentially where, if you know, racing aside, just based on raw pace, that's where we'd expect you to finish. So if Patterson wins this race without any dramas, you know, seated 7th, that shows us one of two things: either he way outperforms his expectations, or he didn't perform very well in the hot stint that they had to do to qualify for this. So it's one of those two things. But I think either way, it would be a pretty impressive feat to beat all the people that he's out in front of right now.
Yeah, he's holding his own. I mean, he's got a good gap, half-second gap almost to Liu, and another half-second or 4/10 back to Hendrickson. So holding steady there up in front, and again, the toe, you know, playing a bit of a factor here, as we can see as we ride on board Hendrickson. But you know, most of these drivers are probably on similar trim levels at the moment, so it's not as dramatic as we saw in the Asia round.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've noticed so far today is the Asia round. There were so many drivers that were running such high downforce setups, or at least the people at the front, that it seemed like the draft was massively effective. And it still is effective today, but it's just not as much as we would have thought based on the Asia round that we watched earlier. A lot of these drivers running far more trimmed out setups with less downforce. Essentially, the wings on these cars are airplane wings that you've turned upside down. They make lift in the opposite direction of an airplane, which means that they're providing downforce. And of course, the less of that you have, the faster you're going to go in a straight line, because you don't have so much drag on the car, so much aerodynamic drag from that big wing. You're sort of trimmed it out so it's flat to the air. And with that done, you're going to go a lot faster on the straightaways, but not be quite so quick in the corners. But it's a balance here. I'm not really sure what you'd want at Paul Ricard. It's got a good mix of fast and slow corners.
Yeah, you got to go with what you're most comfortable with and what you're going to be most consistent with over the race. And you know, looking at the post-race discussion, looks like Hillebrand was running a 3-wing, so fairly low on the downforce scale. So that definitely explains why he had such great straight line speed. And he was also talking about how his tires were starting to go off up there at the end. So it's definitely something that played a huge factor in him being able to keep out in front of Nora. Nora was definitely running a bit more wing. Even Craner was running a one wing, and he was able to catch up on those big long straights, but couldn't do anything within the corners. So it's big. Oh, here's move. Wow,
that was a big moment for Alu Gobi. She takes a strong run to the inside here on Brian Canapan, and it was a fake left and a move right that got her that inside line. A slight touch there on left rear to right front, but she takes the spot away from Canapan. That was a power move by Brian, and Brian will slip back to 7th spot, which is a surprise to say the least. And that was is certainly a strong move there. We're going to go back a little bit deeper in the field. There's one driver here, JT Tammy, who we've seen in the past. He's got Marin Edwards, in behind him. But JT is a driver we've seen in SRO Esports competition before, but I have to go back up front because it is getting very, very racy here with Cardin Lou right behind, 2 car lengths back.
Yeah, now here's where pace is starting to show up. Let's see if Lou, now that he's got, he still has Hendrickson right on his rear bumper, but can he try to get around Patterson to then potentially gap the field? So closes up right in the brake zone here as he goes through turn 2. Not as much curb as Patterson, but gets a decent run out, and we'll see if maybe down the back straight he can pull up a little bit closer.
Yeah, the discussion we had earlier was about the curbing here at Paul Ricard. There's really 2 stages of it. You can see here there's a slight crease. The first half of the curbing is essentially raised FIA spec ripple curbing. The other half of it is just flat concrete, so you can actually straddle it and not have the rumble strips affect your suspension and the handling of the car quite so much. Now the paint still is a little bit more slippery than the black asphalt that they're on for the rest of the lap, but it's a little bit better to straddle it than to be on top of it and bumping around. Here's Hendrickson on Cardin Lou for second, looks over driver's right. There's 3/4 of a car width there, so why not jam it up the inside? And this is going to get really tight as they get down to turn 10 if Cardin Lou doesn't move over, which he has not just yet. And now he does, so Hendrickson should have enough of a line there, but not enough to maintain the spot, and tucks back in line to third.
Yeah, he made a wise decision not to crash himself out of P3 at the moment, and just know, a lot of these competitors may have raced in other places before together, but a lot of them might not have, so they just got to feel each other out and see how they race and understand, the race there. And here we go back to a replay of 2 cars getting together there. The 15 car just bumps slightly the multicolor car NSX there, and of Ryan Woodrow, and he had to use some extra road to keep it on the racing surface.
Yeah, so a bit of a bump there between the 15 of Carpentier and the 12 car of Woodrow, but they should continue without too many dramas. At the front, the top 5 sort of in a breakaway here. 7/10 of a second is Zach Patterson's lead. And a handful of other battles happening throughout the field. I want to jump back all the way to 17th. There's Brian Zinn. Pierre-Olivier Cloutier in the number 16 is following for EJT Motorsport. Good battle shaping up here for P17.
Yeah, battles abound here all across the racetrack at Circuit Paul Ricard, and this is giving us a lot of information that we can go back to and take a look at and evaluate everyone's driving performance. But yeah, it's always fun to race in essentially a spec type series because it's all down to driver skill and performance. So here we are, and we're seeing some great battles here this afternoon.
And again, more to it than just where you finish. And there's also telemetry being analyzed today, Robbie, so you can look at every driver's individual performance, not only from where they finish, but also their throttle application, how late they're braking, and all that sort of adds up together to give you a picture of how a driver is performing inside the race car. And that's a very detailed look that you can look at in the Motec software here in Assetto Corsa Competizione. You export your telemetry, can look at it in the same tools that you would look at it if you were driving the real Acura NSX GT3 Evo. So that's a pretty cool tool here that Assetto Corsa Competizione allows you to export to. And very neat that even literally the same software that you would use if you were on any real Acura team to analyze your sim racing performance. That's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, just that added detail of, on a race weekend, you dive deep into video analysis, data analysis. As a driver, you feed off of all of this data to help you improve over the race weekend, especially against, whether it's your teammate or, another car within the team. So it's important to be able to understand how to leverage those tools. And so we use them obviously for analysis, but these drivers, I'm sure too, are using that to help them gain advantage, figure out where they're, picking up time, where they can improve, and what might be going on, especially from a suspension side of things, and just ensure that they're doing all they can within the cockpit to be able to race hard and go for wins.
And if all these drivers were in different cars, it wouldn't tell you a whole lot, because it'd be difficult to compare a Mercedes-AMG GT3 to an Acura NSX GT3 Evo just based on looking at data, because they're different cars. They would drive differently. Your braking points would be different, and that sort of thing. But when you're all running in the same exact car, other than the setup, they're going to be expecting people to be braking in a very similar spot. So you can overlay their data and say, all right, well, this guy's braking 10 feet later and getting out of the corner with the same velocity. That's impressive, and that's what we're sort of looking for here, is to figure out what driver has advantages in what situation. Here's Emilio Carpentier, touch, and there's a spin. Kostovich in the 14 goes for a wild slide in turn 10.
Yeah, that's, again, getting a slipstream, pokes the nose in there and just didn't have enough overlap where Kostovich didn't give up the corner, and unfortunately made contact. And we'll have the stewards looking at that after the race as well. But luckily, it looks like Kostovich didn't have too much damage and has continued and will continue to make his way around the racetrack, trying to evaluate how his car is still handling and to try to hopefully come back stronger for the end of this race.
So about 15 minutes in, about a third of the way through this final race here in these qualifying races, we've got Brennan Oulet and Ryan Woodrow that are also having a bit of a fight back here. This is for now 9th spot, as they've gained a few with the slide and spin from the 14 car. And Oulet closing up on the number 15 of Carpentier through turns 1 and 2. Not a ton of elevation here on the racetrack, but there is a little bit through this first sector, kind of accelerating over a crest. But the traction control and ABS systems in these Acura NSX GT3 Evos extremely advanced, and you can pretty much just mat the throttle and let the traction control do the work.
Yeah, and you can, there's obviously different traction control settings, ABS settings. You can fine-tune those to your liking, and see what works best for you, and you can even change them around the racetrack, so that way, certain corners you might need a bit more traction control and others you don't, so you can dial it back and forth by using your steering wheel or some buttons that you might have programmed.
For the race lead, wow, the 4 of Cardin Lou almost touched Jack Patterson. Now there's a touch and a spin and a crash. Second and third place come together at the exit at turn number 10, and looks like Cardin Lou's going to get the worst of that. And they just get together on corner exit. I don't think the 4 tracked out quite as much as Henderson was expecting, but either way, they got together. And that's going to make Zach Patterson's life a whole lot easier now that his 2 biggest foes have taken each other out. Patterson's lead is expanded now. I think it's going to be Simon Fisher in second.
Yeah, it looked like Lou, was just caught out a bit by obviously trying to make a move on Patterson. Didn't have as much entry speed. Like you said, didn't really track out as much as he probably would have. And Hendrickson was just kind of caught out and didn't have any place to go. And unfortunately, 3 cars battling into turn 10 at very high rate of speed. Every little movement is just so difficult to judge what's going to take place. And it's promoted Simon Fisher here into P2 and Josh Stafford into P3, 2 competitors that have raced in GT World Challenge America Esports competition often. So we'll see if they can track down our leader, Zach Patterson.
And Josh Staffen, we're certainly no stranger to him. He's been around in, as you mentioned, GT World Challenge America Esports competition. And with his success there, I would expect him to be a favorite for the opportunity to be a factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo driver for Acura and Honda. But he's up against some pretty intense competition, and currently only 3rd, but he is a little bit better right now. Was faster the last time around. Looking at Staffen, let's try to find him in our notes here. Again, he has been in Assetto Corsa Competizione for a long time. He's basically committed to this sim, but he's got experience in a lot of other simulators too, and the diversity of that also allows him to be pretty modular and can jump from one sim to the other and be successful in all of them. And as his pace increases, it's still only about 1.5 seconds up to race leader Zach Patterson. If he can dispose of Fisher quickly, he'll have a run here at the race leader, and with 28 minutes to go, plenty of time.
Yeah, I think he's thinking in his head right now, I need to get by Fisher, just because he looks like he's getting held up a bit at the moment. Now we have a 3-car battle as Hendrickson just pokes his nose in and tries to go around the outside of Staffen. So great battle here for P2. and it looks like they're all going to cleanly get through the last corner here. Hendrickson's going to take the position away from Staffen and try to see if he can drive back up towards the leaders. But overall, yeah, I think they, Staffen looks to have a bit more speed than Fisher. Got held up obviously by Hendrickson here, and now just needs to see if he can get by these cars here to try to have a run at the leader.
Yeah, Hendrickson fighting back from that crash he had a couple laps ago. Oh, and Staffen gets run all the way up onto the curbing at the exit of turn number 2. He is on a mission. I think Staffen's just as quick as the 2 car, but got held up. And the opportunistic Hendrickson took a look to the outside, and Staffen tried to pinch him there, and it didn't quite work. But now he runs out of the black stuff you see, gets out of the rubbered in line, and loses some grip. And Staffen's trying to cross over, but just can't quite seem to get the power down quick enough. Nicholas Alvarado is behind in the number 8 car, and now is the 5th car to join this mixture, as well as the bright blue Alu Gobi, who has had a cracking start to this race. She's up to 6th and climbing. She's also running some very competitive lap times, faster than the race leader last time by.
Yeah, and unfortunate for Staffen and Hendrickson, that battle has one, let Simon Fisher kind of gap them a bit, and then also it's bringing Gobi and Alvarado into the mix to battle with them. So, I think like we saw in the European race, maybe a bit of teamwork between the two of them to kind of sort themselves out, get ahead of these cars that are now directly behind them, and then catch Simon Fisher might be more helpful than continuing to battle for position.
Really love what I just saw Alu Gobi do into the braking zone for turn number 11. She sort of turned in early and then jammed on the brakes, braked in a straight line, and then continued to turn in for turn number 11. We see a lot of drivers rely on the ABS to sort of just turn and brake at the same time, but it's not super efficient to do it like that. Again, the ABS systems on these cars are very advanced, but it's still the most efficient to brake in a straight line and have the tires only doing one thing at a time, accelerating, turning, or braking. And Gobi showing that she understands that concept to a T, braked in a straight line and gained a bunch of ground on Alvarado last time through. And now on the brakes for turn number 1 is in the mixture here. Podium is up the road. That's that dark blue and white car. That would be 3rd spot.
Yeah, great race from Gobi. She's definitely showing great poise here, and like you said, the ABS system is super complicated on these GT3 cars. They definitely work to your advantage, but every ABS system is slightly different in the different makes that employ them in their race cars. So you got to kind of find what works best for the Acura NSX GT3 Evo, as well as your driving style, and work it to your advantage. And I think that's a key to a lot of these drivers. This might be they're fairly new to the NSX platform, so they might not have as much experience driving this car in game here as others do. So everyone's kind of learning as they go.
Battle for 8th place. Brennan Oulet in the number 6 has Ryan Woodrow chasing him down. Remember, Woodrow a little earlier in the day got shuffled off course by, I believe it was the number 15, and maybe on a mission to sort of recapture a couple of those positions. Has some work to do. And into turn 10. Fastest corner of the racetrack, just a quick blip down to 5th gear, track all the way out. Watch those bollards, those are the course cut detectors. And closes in a little bit more. It's about a car length and a half between him and 8th place.
Yeah, a little fire out of the back end of Oulet's car there, and they're nice and tidy through this sector, just trying to get that grip. Now back onto the power, using all that curb and trying to just carry as much momentum through this last sector into the front straightaway.
Good battles happening around the racetrack. 8th place, pretty volatile at the moment. Simon Fisher still 2nd. 3rd place is still a bit of a scrap between Hendrickson, Staffen, Alvarado, and Gobi. And that is going to take you back to 3rd place, because I think that's the one that will be most likely to switch. Probably 4th place, or even 5th place now. Alvarado falling back into the clutches of Gobi. And Alvarado started playing racing games since he was 3 with Gran Turismo. All of his games were racing games, which, I've experienced a similar upbringing with most of the games I played were also racing games. That's why I'm here right now watching other people play racing games. But it's an interesting transition, because I think it was Patterson that mentioned that he had only been sim racing since 2019. And here's Alvarado, who's been racing since he was 3. So very distinct differences in esports and gaming experience, but Alvarado right now inside the top 5 and trying to close in on Josh Staffen, but the gap has stayed pretty constant.
Yeah, now I think things have just sorted themselves out as we reach the halfway point of this race, and you know, they're trying to work with each other. At least Staffen and Hendrickson is to get this gap on Alvarado and Gobi, where Hendrickson's actually almost caught up to Simon Fisher, so he'll be challenging for P2 overall here in just a short amount of time.
So leaving right-hander here and into the last couple of corners of the racetrack, Zach Patterson has not looked back ever since the 2 cars behind him got collected. He has been essentially stretching his lead out and is about a half second off of his best lap, but Simon Fisher did run 3/10 better than him last time, and now 3/10 slower than him this time. But the fastest driver in the top 5, at least last time through, was William Hendrickson. So that was a 1:55.4, and that was the quickest lap on the racetrack for anybody that time through. So that 2 car is on a mission to get back forward, and it just once he passes Fisher, the next car on the list is the race leader.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get caught up. You know, obviously he had that incident with Lou, and Lou's trying to make his way back up the pack, but Hendrickson's in the same boat trying to get by Fisher. You know, 21 minutes left. That's still a decent amount of time to see if they can reel in Patterson, but Patterson is definitely looking really good out front, holding his pace and just cruising at the moment.
Yeah, Lou again collected in that spin, was running up in second place, got turned around by Hendrickson, and Lou is back up to 10th, but is running off pace from where he was earlier. He's got 2 cars to pass now, Woodrow and Ulay in his view, but Hendrickson was able to recover slightly better and now sets his sights on Simon Fisher. And with 20 minutes to go, it's just under halfway. And I think the pressure is on now because Patterson's lead is slightly increasing. So the more time that he spends behind Fisher, the more time that he's going to lose. As soon as he gets by, that gap should start coming down, at least based on the lap last time around. Whoa, big slide for Simon Fisher. Holy cow. Big moment there. Gathers it back up, Robbie.
Yeah, super wide. You know, just misjudged his braking point. And now you have Hendrickson all over his rear bumper, looking to pounce, looking to make a move. This section is really tight, very hard to pass, so he'll probably be under duress here at the end of this front straightaway.
So a big moment for Simon Fisher. He is definitely feeling the pressure and struggling with some mechanical grip in the slower portions of the racetrack. Now William Hendrickson looks off to drivers right into turn 1, sort of a non-traditional area to make a pass, but he's going to cross over at the exit here and get a wider entry and a wider exit. He's right there, pops over to drivers right, and this should be a passing opportunity here down into turn number 3, and indeed it is. He will go through and take the spot away. Josh Staffen closes in, and he wants 4th place, or 3rd place rather, from Fisher now.
Yeah, what crazy amount of time gained here on the brakes from Staffen, and as Fisher had to succeed into 3rd place there. So that puts Simon Fisher back under attack from Josh Staffen, which I'm sure Simon just would love for a breather at the moment. But now he's got to be on the defensive again as Staffen is looking to move up into that 3rd place position. So
while all that happened, the lead expanded to over 3 seconds, almost 4 seconds now. It's 3.8. Hendrickson still was faster by a 1/10 of a second, but only time will tell if he's going to have enough more speed left to go down there and run down Zach Patterson before this race is over. Meanwhile, 8th and 9th, Ulay and Woodrow, they're nose to tail, and they've got Carden Lou closing in from 10th place, who is on a mission to recover any spots that he can after a spin on the opening laps.
Yeah, Ulay has put himself in good position here. He's you know, obviously got Woodrow and Lou, who Lou has been fast, as we know, and was leading the race at one point in time. So we'll see if Ulay can hold off Woodrow and Lou, but another good battle out here on track.
Ulay has been driving very defensively, and he hasn't lost his position, and they've been doing this for the last 10 or 15 minutes without much time loss. So think that Woodrow's really all that much faster, but the driver I know is faster is Cardin Blue. Last time by 2/10 better. It's a 2/10 of a second loss for Hendrickson on Patterson last time by, but that was also including the pass that he had to do. So I think this time by we'll see the true pace difference between Hendrickson and Patterson at the front while we continue to watch Cardin Blue. Now, a surprise to me is Brian Canapan is struggling down in 13th place. He's the top seed here, Robbie. This is a surprise.
Yeah, he didn't qualify too well, but also has just started to kind of lose pace, and maybe he went the wrong way on setup and really didn't set himself up for the conditions or just the competition itself. But yeah, he's definitely moving in a direction that you don't necessarily want to go, and has been struggling this race.
Yeah, again, he started, I believe, in 6th or 7th spot, and has just been dropping since the drop of the green flag, which is not what you want to see. You want a driver to go the other direction. And a driver going the other direction right now is Josh Staffen, who is on the attack of Simon Fisher on the outside, and behind him watching is Nicholas Alvarado, who has a great view of this out the windshield of this Acura NSX GT3 Evo. 16 minutes to go, and it's getting real exciting for 3rd spot.
Yeah, again, Simon's just a bit wide. Staffen kind of closes in on the apex there as they head into the final 2 corners. I think, you know, whatever's on Staffen's mind is just let's get by Fisher and then have a run at Hendrickson and Patterson. But you know, getting to the back of the car is one thing, and trying to pass is another. So we'll see if Josh can make a move here in the next few laps.
Interesting to see up in the middle of your screen, the mirror. It's not really a mirror, it's a camera on the rear bumper of the car to show that Nicholas Alvarado is close behind. So the pressure is still on for Staffen to complete this pass just to get the 8 car off his rear bumper. But again, like we've seen this happen a couple times today, where there's a 3-car fight and the guy in the middle is certainly under the most pressure to get the pass done to avoid being passed by the driver behind. Meanwhile, up front, I told you I'd check back in on the pace of the leader compared to the 2nd place car. It was a half a second gain for Hendrickson last time by. So if my experience tells me anything, this race is far from over at the front.
Yeah, at that pace, he should be able to catch Patterson by within a few laps, and see if he can put pressure to try to squeeze by him. And I think Staffen's kind of feeling the same thing. He needs to get by Simon so that he can try to catch back up to this lead pack here as well.
So there's Simon Fisher with Josh Staffen in tow. Nicholas Alvarado, Alou Gobi in 6th. And it's a pretty sizable gap back to Emile Carpentier in 7th. But Fisher, again, he's been really struggling with this next corner in particular. I believe this is turn number 12. He's had a couple big slide moments through here. That time a bit more composed. You can see him being real cautious though with the steering input as not to upset the rear of the car. I think he's got it set up to be very loose in the left-handers.
Yeah, it could be also in a low downforce setup just to help on those big straights. So he's kind of finessing it around these tight and twisty corners, trying to keep some tire underneath him. But you know, you can see Staffen's just on attack mode and is right there on his rear bumper, and applying that pressure.
And also, you know, the slower you go, the less downforce you have. So even if you have a pretty low downforce setup, you've got essentially none at low speed. Again, aerodynamic wings essentially become twice as effective. Actually, I should say 4 times as effective with twice the speed. It's a quadratic relation. So if you're going twice as fast, you have 4 times the amount of force on that wing. So if you're going twice as slow, you have 4 times less downforce on that wing. So when you're doing a corner at 50 miles an hour, there's almost nothing of significance in terms of downforce level coming from that rear wing. So at that point, you're relying all on mechanical grip, which can come and go depending on track surface conditions, tire temp, and steering input. And Fisher definitely going to feel pressure from Staffen here. That Acura comes with a big run. Fisher's going to stay defensive, and now Staffen looks to driver's left.
Going to try to side draft Simon Fisher down the back straight there. He's definitely now ahead, but let's see if Simon allows some room to get by. And yeah, Staffen's in front. Simon gives up the corner, but is still right there in the rear bumper, trying to re-attack, seeing if he can make a move. And now here comes Alvarado trying to also take advantage of the situation.
Yep, and he's going to try to sneak the nose into there in the braking zone and gets alongside. And Fisher feeling a bit teamed up on for the moment. But now should have the advantage here in this left-hander to keep this spot for now. That'd be 4th place. And don't look too far back because Alou Gobi is now in the mix. Headlights on, glowing on the pavement. Alvarado gets run over onto the curbing. Fisher is definitely flopping around here. Fish out of water, losing spots. Was very comfortable up in 2nd earlier, but now struggling to hang on to spots.
Yeah, with 2 cars just ready to pounce. Here comes Gobi too as she tries to make a move on Alvarado. Alvarado goes to defend. Gobi's just trying to get a draft down the front straightaway. Probably not going to be able to make it happen into turn 1 here, but now that he is under attack by Gobi, that's going to give Simon Fisher some breathing room.
Yeah, he's going to try to run away while he can as Gobi negotiates with the number 8 car rather for 5th place. And our number 7 seed is still leading this race, but the number 2 seed is running him down. Hendrickson, 1.8 back. It was wow, that was a big gain. 9/10 of a second gain for Hendrickson last time by. I almost wonder if Patterson made a big mistake somewhere because that lead is coming down very, very quickly. 11 minutes and 15 seconds to go, and Patterson, I'm sure, would like it to just to be 15 seconds to go because he is going to run out of time to hang on to this lead.
Yeah, and that's where it comes back down to our qualifying stints, coming back from a pure pace perspective. Patterson being 7th overall, obviously close to the top of the timesheets, but not quite the top. And with Hendrickson being P2 in that respect, I think he definitely has some added pace over Patterson that he's just trying to leverage to reel him in, as well as Staffen. Staffen's now got some breathing room over Simon Fisher, so he can try to just put his head down and see if he can run down the top 2 like we've seen in some of our past races here. The leaders might get into an incident or might go off track or get a drive-through penalty. So you never want to you don't want to give up, and you just want to keep pushing and see where you end up when the checkered flag falls.
10 minutes to go here. Alou Gobi still keeping pressure on Alvarado, not letting him get away and not letting him stop thinking about the bright blue Acura in the mirror at the moment. 10 minutes to go. It means about 5 laps left, so you only get 5 more opportunities to use that back straightaway to your advantage. See Alvarado pulling away slightly on the straights. Makes me wonder about downforce level again, if Alvarado is running a slightly lower downforce setup. But Gobi so good on the brakes through turn 1. Look at the ground she makes up on that number 8.
Yeah, and they've had the benefit of being able to watch the first 2 races, so I'm sure the drivers in this North America split here are, have seen what the draft can do for them, and probably have chosen a certain aerodynamic setting that would help them while still being able to keep the car underneath them. So, but yeah, she's definitely on attack mode. She's made her way up quite significantly from where she started, and great to see if she can get past Alvarado here in the closing laps.
Bit of a gap now forming up onto the back straightaway. And that is one of our closer battles on the racetrack. Mia Swenson, let's talk about her for a moment. Up to 11th. She started towards the tail of the field. Or a little bit farther back than she is now, but she's up to 11th spot and continuing to lay down some pretty solid laps. Joseph Kostovich, though, is trying to run her back down to get by in the number 14. Brian Canapan, again, 13th place, who we mentioned earlier. But as we get down to the last couple laps, you're starting to look at gaps that are shrinking, that are significant. And again, Zach Patterson, his lead is now just over a second. Now at this pace, Hendrickson will get there, but we all know, Robbie, that getting there is one thing and passing is a whole different ballpark. So Hendrickson's going to have to figure out where to pass this as Mia Swenson just gets assessed a drive-through.
Yeah, I just saw that pop up screen. You can't go a race at Paul Ricard without seeing at least one drive-through penalty. So obviously, again, too many track cuts. She got her 4th and has now has to serve a drive-through penalty for that. But going back to our leader, yeah, Zach Patterson is losing a little bit of ground here and there to Hendrickson, and once Hendrickson comes up to battle, we'll see how he does under pressure, and if he can make that Acura NSX GT3 Evo super wide and still within regulation without blocking or doing anything suspect like that, but just see if he can hold off a charging Hendrickson.
So under 8 minutes to go now, and the battle for the lead is heating up. Hendrickson, I'm going to run on board with him here, and I want to see if he can make up ground without much of a slipstream here on this back straightaway. The gap is 1.4 as they leave sector 2. And we'll see how much closer he is when he gets to the braking zone for turn number 11. And sort of driving the middle of the road there, now tracks back over to the left. And a slight gain, and there wasn't much slipstream to speak of that far back, so I think slightly more trimmed out than Zach Patterson, which is going to exacerbate the draft effect. Once he gets within a second, that'll help him suck right up to that rear wing and get this pass done quickly.
Yeah, he's been able to recover really nicely. Same with Lou. You know, Lou actually was stopped out on the racetrack, had to back up, and definitely was the loser of that situation there, as he's under attack from Carpentier at the moment. But yeah, just lost the space. So maybe, you know, going off and sliding the tires is going to hurt his chances here in the last few laps, as the tire deg is probably a bit more than all the other cars around him because of his spin. But Hendrickson, yeah, is definitely looking to see if he can get by Patterson here before this end of the race.
Yeah, interestingly, Cardin Lou had actually passed the 15 car a couple moments ago and has re-lost that position. And he does seem like he's sliding around a little bit now. So yes, the slide earlier might have hurt the tires and raised their temperature, but he looked like he was trending in an upward direction, and indeed he was, but now just loses a spot to the 15. So maybe that forward progress is going to stall back here in 8th. Now the frustrating thing is once he gets by Ryan Woodrow in 7th, if he can get there, it's 8 seconds to Gobi in 6th. So I think the highest that Luke could finish without some dramas up front would be 7th place, and he's still got some work to do to even get there. So with 5 minutes and 30 seconds to go, I think the goal is just to get to the front of this little pack here, and that's probably all that's reasonable in this next little bit.
Yeah, it's always difficult the further you start to get up the field, of course. Everyone's a bit faster, a bit more racy, and isn't going to give up a position quite as easily. So he's going to run into, even if he is slightly faster here and there, he's going to run into a lot of trouble just trying to get by. But he does got a decent slipstream, so let's see if he can make that move again and make it stick for the lap.
Here he comes. Driver's left now down the back straightaway, heading towards turn number 10. Around the outside, he actually has Carpentier cleared before they get to the corner. But the 15 got the spot back in turn number 11 last time, sort of launching deep into the braking zone here, but I think Lou's got it now and will officially move himself up into 8th place. But this is where Carpentier gets that mid-corner run. It's not going to be enough to get back by. Back up front, 1.2 seconds. The lead is coming down. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. It's about, what, 2 or 3 laps, I think, by the looks of the timing and scoring. And Hendrickson still has a ways to go. He's beaten him 2 to 3 tenths a lap. So he needs to gain a little bit more if he wants to have a legitimate shot at this here, Robbie, but the draft is going to help.
Yeah, and I'm sure now Patterson obviously knows he's been closing in on him, so he's probably going to put his head down and try to just knock out some qualifying speed laps here, but Hendrickson's in a good position. He's just looking to see if he can get a little bit closer, and like you said, once he gets some draft, you know, will that help? Will it be able to help him suck back up to the back end of this car and make a challenge for the lead at least? But and going back to our P3 battle, I have some information that Staffen has some front end damage too that's hurt his forward progress, so now he's kind of falling back into the clutches of Simon Fisher and Alvarado and Gobi once again. But if he can just kind of hold on, he's only got 3 minutes left. He's got a decent cushion, so he might be able to still keep his P3 position there. But yeah, this is again in the closing laps here, it's tightening up and great battles all across the racetrack. Yeah,
we're anticipating 2 laps to go next time by, and William Hendrickson has reeled in Patterson to within half a second now as he enters turn number 11. The race is on at the front. Patterson has basically led this since the drop of the green flag. A little bit of shuffling around in the early moments let him squeeze on through. And now Hendrickson in the number 2 car after he tangled with Cardin Lou, the number 4 car, a couple laps into the race. He is almost fully recovered. Yes, it will be 2 laps to go this time by. And Patterson is going to have to make his car very wide for the next 10 kilometers. That's a tall ask here, Robbie, but Hendrickson's been better by 2 to 3 tenths a lap the last 5 or 6 laps. But once you get here, then you sort of stall out, and Hendrickson can't have that happen if he wants to win this race.
Yeah, luckily, I think he's trimmed down enough where he can take advantage of the straights, but and it's not going to affect him as much in the corners where, you know, as we saw with our European race, where if it was the opposite, if he had a bit more aero and he was trying to challenge the car with less aero, much harder to pass. So we'll see if he can take advantage of that. And he's just right there, right on the rear bumper, trying to see if he can get as close as possible to the number 7 car as they launch out onto the back straightaway here and see if he can draft by him.
Carpentier drive-through penalty. He's going to drop down the order after fighting up inside the top 10. That's a shame for him. All right, now onto the back straightaway. Hendrickson going to get the run here. Will the slipstream be enough to make this pass? Oh, it certainly will be. 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Oh, he's going to back out, tuck back in line, get the draft again. Drag race down the backstretch. Twin turbo V6 is screaming at the top of the rev range, trying to get some overlap here, but Patterson's car is just too fast. Hendrickson back to driver's right into turn 10. Is he going to lunge up there? No, backs out. I'm shocked, Robbie. I thought he would have had plenty of speed momentum to get the job done there, but he didn't. And that leaves me questioning if he's got the pace to get this. I mean, the pace is there, but does he have the straightaway speed? Yes, he's trimmed out, but so is Patterson.
Yeah, that definitely shows that the cars are fairly equal in terms of their aero settings, and now Patterson just needs to figure out how he can keep Hendrickson behind him. But yeah, you know, I think Hendrickson popped a bit too early as well. I think he could have stayed in the draft just a bit longer, just to make that lunge and try to get a bit more overlap, but unfortunately he was trying to pop a bit early and just couldn't make that move happen.
Well, white flag one more time around here for the North American region in the Honda JAS Academy to select a factory Acura NSX GT3 Evo driver for SRO Esports this season. We've had 3 regions race today: Asia, Europe, and now North America. That's the race you're watching now. Drivers are evaluated based on their competition performance as well as their pace. And Hendrickson has done all the above. The only thing he hasn't done yet is won the race. He's 3 tenths back or Patterson is 3 tenths ahead of Hendrickson. And now we only have about 3/4 of a lap left to do it. Hendrickson slipped a little bit here, Robbie. Now, will he learn? Will he stay in the draft longer this time to build that run? Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, all of our races have come down to this final lap. Both cars nose to tail, you know, a lapped car looming. So we'll see if that plays a factor here in this final lap. But we'll see if Zach is able to keep Hendrickson behind him as Hendrickson inches closer. Is definitely staying in the draft longer, seeing if he can get a side draft now, and should be able to pull up side by side based on that. But let's see if Zach will keep it tidy. Yeah, he's going to keep the point, and Hendrickson has to fall back in behind.
Well, that was really, really close. Hendrickson almost had it, then he slips there through turn number 11. That might have been all he had. Again, we saw Staffen complete a pass around the outside in turn 10 earlier, but it's certainly not an expectation. That's a hard corner to do anything with, even though it comes after one of the best closing opportunities on the entire course. But for Zach Patterson, the pace is there, and it seems like it's just going to be enough. Only 2 corners left now to negotiate. And for Zach Patterson in the bright purple number 7, a launch from the 2 car in the last corner, but it's not going to be enough. Zach Patterson gets it done. The 7 seed here in the North American region. He's going to win the HPD JAS Academy event here at Paul Ricard. Hendrickson, a 2nd place for him. Staffen comes home 3rd, then Simon Fisher 4th. Nicholas Alvarado 5th, Alou Gobi in 6th. Woodrow, Lou, Kostovich, and Ulay going to round out the rest of the top 10. Robbie, that was a great battle there, but Hendrickson needed another lap or 2 to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, again, down to the checkered flag. Great battles. Congrats to Zach Patterson, who had a very solid race. Will Hendrickson as well. He was able to battle back from that spin and contact with Cardin Lou. Lou made his way back all the way up to 8th place, so congrats to him as well to just persevere and push on and still finish within the top 10 here after essentially having to stop on the racetrack. And Staffen did a great job to hold on to P3, Fisher in 4th, Alvarado in 5th, Gobi in 6th. That was an awesome battle between those 4 and 5 drivers at times as they worked around this circuit Paul Ricard.
So with the racing portion of this mini championship complete, Robbie, the next goal essentially is to have drivers sort of selected based on their competition performance, and then they get evaluated based on their marketability essentially. Talk me through what that entails and what we can expect and how quickly will this happen, because we have our first SRO Esports event for North America next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a quick turnaround. The team at HPD, as well as some invited panelists, are going to take a look at all of the replays here, as well as the telemetry files, like you mentioned earlier, and the broadcasts. And we're going to go through an evaluation process and see who, at least is from a performance perspective, fits the bill of being on the team, and then subject them to some marketing interviews as well to just understand their personalities and their how they kind of position themselves, I guess, and through social media or through streaming, if they're streaming on YouTube or Twitch, etc. So we just want to understand who these people are on and off the racetrack to make sure that we find the right drivers for the HPD JAS Esports Pro team that will compete in each region. And we're going to select drivers from each region that will represent the brands and mainly the endurance championships, as well as the North American Sprint Championship. So you'll see the pro team competing out in there. And on, I believe it's Wednesday, we'll announce who the team is going to be comprised of, and they'll go straight into practice for all the various SRO esports competitions that will take place next weekend.
Exciting time to be a sim racer, the opportunity to be a factory driver for Acura and HPD in the SRO esports competitions around the world, and a couple of those championships, including the North American one, kicking off next weekend. The 22nd is the first round for the North American Championship. I will be there, excited to announce that and be a part of this here on GT World. That will all air right here on GT World in 1 week's time, as well as the entire rest of the season. I think, Rob, you mentioned 32 esport competitions going to be airing here on GT World this season. You can also watch on Facebook, and make sure that you follow all the accounts for GT World Challenge powered by AWS, Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS. So that new pairing with Fanatec, Robbie, so cool to have that paired up directly with a sim racing hardware manufacturer. So exciting things for 2021. And that's going to do it for today's broadcast. We're going to move on to the real deal next week. Next Saturday, going to kick things off with SRO Esports. The GT World Challenge America Esports competition begins next weekend. We'll see you there.